What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale, coming at you with the one, the only Mr. Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast fame, of Yahoo Sports fame, of HBO Max fame, and of course of OnlyFans celebrity. We are here slightly earlier than we anticipated, at least per the schedule on the live stream, because I did not realize that opening tip is coming in less than 90 minutes of the NBA Cup quarterfinals between the Magic and the Heat. How topical, though, Mort, that we're going to talk about questions we have for every Eastern Conference team as we get ready for the unofficial start of trade season, which happens December 15th when a bunch of the league is eligible to be traded. Our questions, I am sure, will run the gamut of the low hanging fruit, the tax questions, the trade targets, what do they need? There'll be other stuff mixed in. This is a great exercise to just cover every nook and cranny of our curiosity. Before we get started, though, I have one important question before we ask many more questions. Mort, how the heck are you doing?
Doing well, sir. Can't complain. Look, it's getting close to tip-off time, so like we have to get started. We're going through 15 teams. Can we agree right off the bat, though, that some of them don't really have that big questions, like going into the trade season?
Uh
Like the
there's some
Pacers? Like, do we really
there's
have?
yeah. So the problem is that I've thought about all of these teams for way too long, and so like I
Oh,
probably have
okay,
like a lot, like many more questions. But yeah, I
fair,
mean, like the Pacers have some the Pacers have some stuff that they need to figure out with the way that
fair.
Benedict Mathurin might be playing too. So
Okay,
that would be
all right.
something else to consider. How do you want to do this? Let's determine this live. Would you like to just pick which teams we go to, or you want to go in alphabetical order? Which
No,
easier
I
for you?
actually think we should go from the top down in terms of like records. So like we start with the Pistons and then the Knicks, Celtics, and so on.
All right. Welcome to the Pistons. What is your what are you asking about these Pistons, Mort?
What my question
The
is
answer is
do they
no.
yeah, right? Do they have enough floor spacing to really become like a legitimate, finals contender? Do they have that guy, or not just that guy? Do they have enough collective shooting rather to come in and make a difference in the playoffs and go the distance? Because if not, that is going to be a trade issue come trade deadline.
Yeah, I think mine would be some variation of the same. It's more so how aggressive should you be at the trade deadline?
Yeah.
Is now the time to go for it? I do have some of the same concerns that you would. They are 14th in first chance offense per possession. And so if you that's filtering out the offensive rebounding element. And I'm very curious to see how offensive rebounding will translate to the playoffs this year, given what feels like just a bigger time emphasis from so many more teams. But some of the things we've seen in the past is if you have a team that is very reliant on offensive rebounding or getting out in transition, they can become, over the course of an entire series, a little bit easier to guard in the playoffs, especially if they have spacing liabilities, multiple spacing liabilities as part of those lineups. The Pistons would seem to fall into that bucket. They are
Yeah.
also 27th in 3-point attempt rate and 19th in 3-point percentage. I do think, Kate Cunningham probably belongs on the back end of MVP ballots. He's going to make an All NBA team. The fact that they have an offense in the 76th percentile when he's on the court really is a testament to him. But they're about league average when he's off the court. But they drop all the way to the 14th percentile when they don't have Duran or Cade on the court. And that's actually
Right.
a pretty sizable sample because Duran and Cade, like Duran's playing most of his minutes alongside Cade. So that's just, I think, what they need because you look at what Duran has done as a creator this year, what Cade does in general, and then just the floor spacing element. I know they have Karis LeVert. Jaden Ivey's back. He's had some encouraging moments. Donis Jenkins been a nice little story for them. But it feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you look at this roster, it's can they upgrade from the at the force? I don't want to call it the Tobias Harris spot, but sort of at that four spot, or it would be that, or you veer into the territory of we don't think Jaden Ivey's going to be enough. We don't like the Karis LeVert in the playoffs fit. Do we go out and get another ball handler?
First and foremost, I would just ask the question to the Pistons, why are you so out on the Jaden Ivey experience, if that's the case? Because I am not. I still think they deserve, or he deserves, and frankly, Kate Cunningham deserves a fair shake of those two guys playing together. Now, I know he was injured initially. He's been back for, what, 8 or 9 games,
And the
thereabouts?
offense has been when those two have played, it's been pretty bomb so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, I like that fit. I truly do. So I would be surprised if they go that route, but if they do, make sure they get a knockdown shooter, even more than just because it feels like I almost feel like that they are a bit of a version of like an early 2000 team where everyone has like a very distinct role, and then there's like one guy on the team who's like, you're the shooter, like Duncan Robinson, and that's about it. That doesn't really track in 2025 and soon 2026. Like you can't have just that's the shooter that's in singular. That doesn't work. So I think we need to look at some potential upgrades there, but like it's also difficult because you can't relinquish some of the big guys or like some of the most important defenders, like Oscar Thompson, for example. I'm I'm just not willing to move him for just someone who can shoot the ball because he does so many things for you defensively, playmaking wise, on the
Mhm.
glass. So it just becomes this balance of trying to figure out who are we willing to pivot off from and who are we willing to perhaps attach picks for to come in and become a game changer. So I do I anticipate them making a deal? Not necessarily. Do I think it would be malpractice to not at least have some conversations behind the scenes? Absolutely.
What do you make of? I think everyone has kind of pegged the Lowry marketing as the best target for them. I love
Yeah.
his fit. I don't know, and this is doesn't just apply to the Pistons, but I don't know that I am throwing the kitchen sink to get Larry Marketing on this team. Is I'm not as partial to Jaden Ivey as you. So if the Jazz for some reason wanted him, but like I'm not giving up a Sar Thompson in a Larry Marketing trade.
No.
That would be, but and it's also just is that the guy you want to spend however many first round picks on too?
So it depends on the amount of picks, I would say.
Right, which
What
is
is
I
that?
think more than two is where you get into the territory of this is the
Right.
hashtag go for it move, and that's kind of the question that follows up all of our questions is do you think this Pistons team is one good enough and that this is the right time for them to hashtag go for it, or should they be more so looking at slow playing it, kind of like the Rockets did, letting the season play out and then you reevaluate over the summer? My answer to answer my own question would be, or maybe this is more of a prediction, is I could probably see them making more of like a medium size move to where they're not like, do they go out and try and get a Michael Porter Jr.? They're not giving up picks in that scenario. And then they have this huge expiring contract that they could attach picks to over the summer. It feels like they will take the middle ground, sort of like they did last year when they went out and got Dennis Schroeder.
So while you were talking, I was looking for a trade that specifically tailored to your point in regards to Laurie Markkinen, because I did like a trade pod on my Danish podcast, specifically with Laurie Markkinen to Detroit in mind. This is the framework I came up with, and you know, like you set the picks, like if you go beyond two. However, Tobias Harris, Karis LeVert, 2026 first, 2028 first, and 2032 first for Markkinen and Kevin Love. That works. I wonder, because you're not relinquishing that level of talent to get him in, does that not make it potentially worth it? Because like the 2026 pick is not going to be attractive. Like that's a pretty low one. That's probably going to end up in what, the mid to late 20s anyway. 2028, presumably not that, you know, high of a pick. 2032 is where it gets juicy, potentially, where that's really the one thing that the Jazz can go, oh, 30-32, like they might be bad then, potentially. So are we really out on that idea?
Yeah. I
Oh,
so what it's look, it's not here's where I'm struggling is
I love that.
because look at how much Lowry Marketing makes, and then you know that you're going to have to play Jalen Duren a ton. If you
Mhm.
also think, are you going to be paying Jaden Ivey? The salary structures for them just start to get too wonky. You don't want this team to get too expensive too quickly because we just know we could say, yeah, it's only money. They'll pay whatever to keep it together. But all of a sudden, now are you going into next season staring at the barrel of Larry Marketing? 40 plus million. Jalen Duren, what is he going to get close to the max at this point? And then
Well,
you have
Jaden
Cade's
Ivey is going to
max.
be. It's not going to be that expensive now. I
What's
assume.
not that expensive though?
Well,
Even if
so
it's good,
he's a restricted free agent, Dan. We know those guys get squeezed a ton,
fair, totally fair.
and if like right now they're not playing him all that much. So like if there's an injury concern. Like, does he really expect to go out in the open market and get a ton? Like, if I'm a young and up and coming team, I'm definitely looking into the Jaden Ivey situation. Don't get me wrong; I would be very high on that idea. But a lot of teams go into not restrict, just free agency with the mindset of, oh, we want to improve right now. We're not looking to something, far ahead. Maybe he gets squeezed a fair bit. Like, there's a chance they could get him back at a decent sized contract that is like good for them, a team friendly contract.
Even if it's team friendly, though, you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at a team where if we're penciling in as just too conservative, say Jalen Duren at 35 million.
Okay.
Now you have Cade at 50. You're at 85. And if you have Lowry Markkinen on top of that, at what is he going to be? Is he 45, 43, around that price point?
Mm-hmm.
So you're now dipping into what, 130 just to those three guys.
Yeah.
Anything you pay, and with, by the way, Asar Thompson's next deal coming down the pipeline too. And I just worry again, if you know that you think you can juggle it financially for the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 seasons, or Larry Markkinen's deal doesn't even last that long. But I would just be worried that you're giving up all of these picks and you're also boxing yourselves into a financial corner that is going to come back to bite you or force some tough decisions. Maybe not next year. For me, this isn't about next year, but in the ensuing years thereafter.
Well, so I understand your point, but I do think now is the time to do something because that Tobias Harris contract is expiring. We do know that both Jaden and Jalen are going into restricted free agency, so they're going to be, well, at least Jalen's going to come back at a very expensive deal. But you kind of want to use that for something. Like, this is the final trade deadline that they have where they have significant financial flexibility is kind of my point here. So
Fair.
that's why I'm not out on the Lauri Markkinen experience and whatever. Plus, Markkinen has been like low key excellent this year. Like, I
It's cooled off a
understand
little
that.
bit, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
so. Would you rather throw? You're building the offer that you just built out for Lowry
Mhm.
Markkinen. Does it make more sense to spend that on a Lowry Markkinen, or should they be a Trey Murphy team who is substantially cheaper?
That would be interesting. I don't hate that.
I guess what I'm getting at with my point
Yeah.
is that they need to, if they're going to go for it, I think they're good enough to at least consider it, have a conversation. But if they're going to go for it and that it's going to be someone like a Marketing who is either on the books for 2+ years at a huge clip, or you're going to have to pay him at a huge clip, you kind of need to be sure. And otherwise, you do need to be more cognizant of, all right, well, how much is this guy making now and moving forward?
Do you think Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars would ask the Pistons how many picks they have to attach to get Tobias Harris?
They might really want, weren't they? There, Troy Weaver was the front office that drafted Jaden Ivey. Maybe they really want Jaden Ivey. That would
Oh,
be.
see, now we have the angle, and Joe obviously has the ties to Detroit. So, hey, that's not a bad one. Like, just call them up, Tobias Harris with Trey Murphy. You win.
Just see what they say. Just
Just see
asking
what they
questions.
say. Just asking questions.
Of any of the players we've named, have they been? This is when you're going into these negotiations, you're not looking at Asar Thompson as someone you're willing to give up for any of these guys, correct?
No.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's about. I think that they're good enough. Do you think that they'll ultimately make a big move, or will it be? Do you think it'll be more of a middle ground type situation?
Oh, that's a good question. I no, I think they realize that they have a certain opportunity at this point, and that opportunity is gone after the summer. So I no, I think they're going to make a big one. I think they're going to go in, and I respect it.
I'll respect it too, especially the East is wide open. Say what you want about,
Yeah.
oh, they're just going to have to face OKC. The East is
Mm-hmm.
wide ass open right now. In part, how's this for a segue?
Okay.
The Knicks are not
Yeah.
the prohibit. Neither the Knicks nor the Cavaliers have established themselves as this prohibitive favorite to come out of the East. I think if you picked either one of them to come out of the East, you don't need to change your pick right now. I don't know how good you're necessarily feeling about your pick. You're probably feeling a little bit better about the Knicks than the Cavaliers. My question for the Knicks, Mort, what do they need more? A bigger wing, another rim protector, or backup ball handler slash point guard type? I have an answer, but I want to ask you the question.
Oh, that's a good one. So I don't the first one you brought up, like another big wing. No, I'm okay with Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby. I can live with that. I'm gonna say ball handling, backup ball handling guard. I understand like the appeal of having another rim protector, just defensive purposes in the playoffs. But you can just we've seen time and time again in the playoff situations that when you lose capable ball handlers, your offense just dies. It dies. It just jumps off a cliff. So I'm going to say having another ball handler, because as much as I love Deuce McBride, I don't necessarily think that he's quote unquote like a reliable table setter in that regard. Fantastic 3-point stroke this year, by the way, worth keeping that in the back of their mind. Strong defender. Who is that guy who's going to basically run the show if Jalen goes down for a couple of games? Is it Tyler Collick? Josh Hart? Jordan Clarkson? None of those options as of right now to me appear particularly attractive.
I don't think any of the points you made were necessarily wrong, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong about what they
Great.
need most.
Hit me.
Because one, this is how I view it. You could talk about the need for the offense has been like they can slug it out without Jalen Brunson on the court in the regular season. If you lose Jalen Brunson, your regular season's over, your playoffs are over. I'm just not going to care about that.
Right.
They need another big wing in the single worst way. And you could make the case for a rim protector, but that is just a huge ass indictment of the way you have built out your front court right now. The whole idea was we have Yabusele and Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns. We're going to be big and versatile. One big lineups, two big lineups. Yabusele, he's had some moments recently. He has been mostly butt for this team. Mitchell Robinson on the load management plan. He came up pretty big in that win over Orlando where Franz Wagner went down. They will need him against bigger matchups. The offensive rebounding is great. He's actually not been that good on defense this year. Karl Anthony Towns, we know what Karl Anthony Towns is on the defensive end. I just don't. If you're getting a rim protector, are they going to be on the floor in crunch time? And even if they're not, how many minutes are they playing when you have those three? Well, maybe you're giving up Robinson or Yabusele to get them. I look at this as this defense right now can really not function without OG Anunoby on the court.
Mm-hmm.
That is problematic in all sorts of ways because the Knicks really don't have a ton of wing depth. They have OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart. That is it. They're not playing Mohamed Diawara. Intriguing defensively for sure. Bacome Dadier, I'm not even sure if Mike Brown knows his name.
Right.
The problem becomes they have two kind of like big-ish wings and really only one, and it's an Anunoby, where Mikal Bridges is, you don't want him to do any of the low man stuff, but him and OG Anunoby, they can both fill in the gaps. That's not, Josh Hart can do some of that, but he's also not, he's 6'5", or whatever it is. He's not big. And I look at this to say, you need another body. It's not going to be someone you expect to close lineups. You don't have the assets to go out and get just this awesome player that is going to play a ton of minutes for you. But can you get, I've brought this name up a ton, a Justin Champagnie from the Wizards? Can you get, maybe even Ayo Dosunmu is on the smaller end. Do you have the assets to go out and get him?
You're talking about wings, right?
Ayo Dosunmu can guard up, is at least the point. So,
well, I mean, come on. If you're sitting there talking about like we need a wing, there's need a big wing. Here's 6'4" Ayo Dosunmu, who's like more of a point guard. Come on. Like that's not him. Think bigger. If we gotta go wing, I can see your point. I don't disagree with you, but then let's think a little bit outside the box. Let's think about someone who's at least like 6'8", 6'9", can play the 3, can play the 4.
Then an Ochai Akbaji, then go get him, as even if they're a defensive specialist, because they don't have the assets to go get anywhere else. But you also, if you're going to be, also the Ayo Dosunmu thing is you're trying to bridge two gaps, is you get some ball handling there, and then someone who you can at least throw on some tougher coverages, and he can guard the point of attack, which ensures Mikal Bridges doesn't have to. So
the point of attack, I agree with. He's pretty good there. It's the other stuff I'm probably a little bit more worried about defensively.
But I think because of how dependent you are on OG Anunoby to cover up for everybody right now, you need to get ready in the event. Because I think you could make the case, and I probably even would, that OG Anunoby is the single most irreplaceable player on the Knicks right now, and that includes Jalen Brunson.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Just in terms of like the fabric, the two-way play.
Alt Rock in the chat. Knicks need Herb Jones. They just don't have the assets for him. Herb Jones would work too. Yeah. The
Yeah,
problem
that's a
is
good
when you're
one.
looking for a bigger wing, they're going to be in the dregs of the league because they just don't have the assets to do. Like maybe they could get, and I wouldn't even be in love with this. He's never been great against bigger players. Like maybe you could get Matisse Thybulle from Portland if you're step laddering salaries. So, I
What
mean,
about
Najee
Gigi
Marsh.
Jackson?
Ooh, he's really hasn't been good defensively, but he also the Grizzlies seem out on him in general. I
Like
wouldn't.
totally, and he was like at least very good in his rookie year, offensively, defensively. He was
He
really a rookie, but
he does seem the quintessential guy that Mike Brown would not play. Like the Knicks have not developed. Like he's a guy he's a developmental guy.
yeah, that's true. That is true.
What about again Najee Marshall would work for
Yeah,
them too?
yeah, that would be. That's a good name. What 6'6", 6'7", right? Oh God. See,
Isn't he bigger?
by the way, kids today have ruined that for me. Just
Uh,
calling a player 6'7". He's six
they have a
seven, I think.
they have a 6'7" cam now in some of the arenas. I see it on the NBA League Pass broadcast I get, and
I
I have
saw that
never felt
too.
more washed than when I see those things come up.
He's
That's
six
the that's
six,
the
by the way. So take that, kids.
he
Take
looks like
that.
he's 6'9".
Yeah. Oh,
But
he's a
that
big wing in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so but I think they need that because you want to be, if you're going to have one, and a lot of the times two, of Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson on the court, you don't want to be as beholden to, well, if OG Anunoby's injured, or we just, like, you just need another big wing to paper over those minutes that OG Anunoby's not on the court, because I think as of right now, you listed things they could do if Jalen Brunson is catching a breather or he's out.
Right.
You could try Josh Hart, try Mikal Bridges. You do have Tyler Kolek. The other thing here is if OG Anunoby, let's just say OG Anunoby's healthy, but he's playing 35 minutes a game in the playoffs, whatever it is, or those 8 minutes a game he's off the court. You don't want Mikal Bridges. You don't want Josh Hart doing the same things that OG Anunoby does. And no, you're not going to get OG Anunoby in some cheap guy, but just to have that type of body, to throw at those type of assignments, to do some of the lower man stuff as well, I think that's their biggest need. And I honestly think that wing depth has been it's because they have these big names at the top to where it's, oh, this isn't going to be a problem, but this is assuming fantastic health, which when it comes to OG Anunoby specifically, we really can't just presume that. And so I think that's their biggest need. I think
Hmm.
everything we talked about is a need, which is kind of just why the Knicks might feel a little bit unconvincing at this point as a cream of the crop contender.
I'm not sure how they go about acquiring him because you'll have to give up probably Josh or Mitch, either one of them. PJ Washington would slide right into this
Can't be
bucket.
traded this year.
Oh, the extension. Damn, that's true. Oh, damn. Oh,
We
you
have
thought about it. You thought
Alt
about it.
Rock 1017 Grant Williams. I don't like a healthy Grant
Nah,
Williams. I don't think does enough of what they need.
no.
Honestly, I'd probably rather have Mikal Bridges guarding like bigger wings around the basket than Grant Williams at this
Okay,
point.
so see, he's overpaid, so that's why he'll come cheaply. But again, this is where it's tough to actually get rid of guys who does a good job. But Patrick Williams would fit the salary's effed, but like
Sir,
no, 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 no,
sir.
no, 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 no. He's a big wing. He can at least shoot the ball a bit. Defensively, he's actually probably what you're looking for in that role, right?
Mm, no, I'd probably want
No,
someone better. Like, how much you trust him in that role? I mean, he's going to come in and
I
just
trust
completely
him to
submarine
average
your
9 and
offense.
4. I'd like my my life depended on it because that's just what he does. 9 and 4 for the win every single time.
Do we think? I just don't think they. Why would they trade him to a rep? Dean
No, no,
Wade
no,
would
no.
be
I'm
good for
just
this
saying, like
team.
is that the archetype of player, right? Someone
Yeah,
who's not
it
high
it
usage,
right. It could like I think Akbaji would be like the most realistic, or
right?
even as I mentioned, Champagny, who I still believe is underrated. That feels realistic, and maybe guys who might actually play. I know Akbaji's on his rookie scale deal, but you kind of have proof of concept from last year. It's also those guys are in the realm of their trade assets. I just mentioned Dean Wade. Assuming the Cavs are even willing to move him, like are you in Dean Wade asset territory if you're the Knicks? I have seen a little Knicks fans have been mini smitten with the idea of like a Deuce McBride for Tari Eason swap. I I don't. I guess you can get on board with that, but I do. What I will
Yeah,
caution, I will if you're going to get way more expensive than after because like Deuce is on another team controlled year. Um, and I think that so like I know he's going to need an extension eventually, but that's something you have to reconcile. And then I also would be curious to see like you're getting rid of Deuce McBride, which has insulated Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby against defending at the point of attack as often as they did last year, which has allowed them to play the gaps. Do you trust Tari Eason to defend exclusively at the point of attack in New York? I think you probably could, but he's been
Yeah,
someone who's
yeah,
dealt with his whole health issues. I think the Rockets would be the team. This is all to say that would most likely say no to that with the emergence of Reed Shepard. I know they're missing Fred VanVleet and Deuce McBride, as you pointed out. He's not like that conventional guard type anyway. But if they're
correct.
worried about their payroll and they know that he's only on the books for $4 million next year, maybe. But that's the idea that Knicks fans seem to want to go
I
through.
mean, look, I'm in the camp of wanting another ball handler, not another wing. But if a Deuce McBride for Tari Eason trade is in any way feasible, you take that and you run. Like Tari Eason to me is one of the most underrated players in the league. Yeah, you absolutely freaking do that.
I would be in the camp that would be a little bit more hesitant than you would be. I
Well, you're
totally.
also you're a safety guy, Dan.
A safety guy, but he's dealt with issue stuff too. And then I'm just wondering how much are the Knicks willing to pay to keep this core in place after this season? He's
You're
going to
wondering
be.
too much. Lean into life, sir. Lean into life.
Who do you think would be more likely to say no to that trade? Though I feel like Houston just shuts it down
Houston should.
immediately.
Yeah, Houston immediately should shut it down. I love Deuce McBride, but Tari Eason, I think again, I also feel as though Houston went in the wrong direction. They extended Jabari Smith Jr. instead of Tari Eason. I think Tari is better. I think he was the one who should have been a mainstay. They apparently disagree. We'll see how it ends up. I could be wrong, but I like Tari Eason far more.
Far more than Jabari Smith. Yeah, we've been through.
And Deuce
We've been through.
McBride.
I think Tari Eason is the more valuable player than Deuce McBride. I just when you're factoring in contracts and also
Mm,
checkered
right.
health bills and like Tari Eason's never been a higher minute guy too, and so maybe you don't need him to be a higher minute guy in New York with OG and Josh and Mikal. I thought Houston would shut it down, and maybe that's why I didn't give it enough credence for the Knicks. And I also fall in the camp. I do think that Jabari Smith Jr. is more valuable than Tari Eason.
That's fair.
Tari Eason's
That's fair.
roles
We
just
can all
needs
be
here.
wrong once in a while. It's okay, Dan. Yeah.
Our next team up, third place in the East. I would not have predicted this at any
Right.
stretch this season. What is your question for the Boston Celtics?
Is this worth it? So this isn't even like it's going into
This is
the trade season kind of thing. Like, because no, but we had this discussion before. Like, they have their own draft pick this year, and the 2026 draft class is ridiculous right at the top level. So,
Mhm.
like, all right, Jaylen Brown is averaging 29. Their offense is humming, fourth in the league. Everything is kind of working out on that side of the floor. But my question is, to what end? What is the end game here for this season? Like, oh, we're gonna make it to the playoffs. Probably gonna get bounced in the first round. That was nice. Look, we went out proud. Celtic pride. Oh, you could have potentially had Darren Peterson if you weren't trying to just, I don't know, virtue signaling or whatever you want to call it. Just like, oh, we're here. We're trying to win. Yeah, sure you are. Why should you? It doesn't make sense to me.
I think the problem with taking that view now
Mhm.
is how are they're not going to get in the territory they need. So they've already like that ship has sailed. As we're recording this 6 games
Yeah,
over.
now, yeah, but god damn, like they could have changed pace some time ago, couldn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, what were you? So the idea was just to never play Jalen Brown, but because you're looking at just some of the seasons they've gotten, like Josh from
Right.
Cada, Josh Minot contributing,
Yeah, he's good.
Jordan Walsh, excuse me, emerging. They've had good minutes from Luka Garza at points. My question: would you feel better? Because my
Mhm,
question
mhm.
is sort of twofold. Can they duck the tax? They're about $12.1 million over. Do you feel better about this season if they do duck the tax because then it doesn't count towards their repeater clock? Or is this like you're just so far at like no, they should still try and get worse and just maximize their draft? It's not going to be in the top five, but they could probably still get a lottery pick if they really wanted to. Those are all the moving parts. And the other thing is, I want to know who among these guys that are emerging are actually keepers. When you look at Akeda, seems like
Right.
he might be that guy. Minot, Walsh for sure. That dude's all hustle and heart. But I also should they be open to the idea, Mort? Not to go all in on something, but should they look at this and say, "Oh, do we need a higher end alternate ball handler? Do we want to try and get someone who's more of the center of the future?" And to your point, though, if they're still viewing this as a gap year where they reorient themselves, they also probably have to ask themselves, okay, are we keeping Peyton Pritchard and Derek White? So Jaylen Brown's going nowhere, but the Sam Hauser, the Peyton Pritchard, the Derek White of it all, they have a lot of balls in the air, and I don't think they were supposed to have this many in the air because I did not see them being third in the
Right.
Eastern Conference more than a quarter of the way through the season.
Right. I mean, personally, I come back to the Jason Tatum thing where you have no idea how he'll look when he returns. Just because we've seen guys come back from Achilles tears before, Durant is the obvious example. It does not mean you automatically can assume that, oh, Jason Tatum is going to be 100% of himself. Like, we all hope that he will be. So I'm looking at this from a long-term perspective because I just can't be guaranteed that he returns. And I would much rather go into like a draft season where it's so deep and you can really find guys within the first 4 or 5 picks. And like the issue here, of course, being, yeah, you can't get in there with your own selection. But if you get significantly worse and your pick worsens, or not, well, if your pick improves, then you can at least try to trade up. It's easier to trade up from like, I don't know, 11 than it is 21. So
Tell that to the Pelicans.
that was mean. All right. But also, I'm just not closing the door on perhaps maximizing whatever you can get out of a Jaylen Brown trade, but I wouldn't necessarily do it in season unless I'm pretty sure that what I'm getting back is snaps Hall. This team just weirds me out, man. I don't understand what their end goal is. I don't understand what they're trying to achieve here. It all seems very fake. All like not the players are giving it at all. I love that, and the coaching staff are right there. It's just the direction, the entire like we're gonna keep fighting despite our guys being down. It's like, all right, yeah.
I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like you're being
What?
pretty dismissive of what's happening because
Oh,
it's
I am. I absolutely am because
yeah.
I don't think this leads to anything. I think this at the end of the day, I'm trying to look 5 years ahead, and I could just see a scenario so clearly in my mind in 5 years where Celtics fans are all going to be like, "Why the hell didn't we tank in 25, 26?"
I think you're operating under the assumption one that any Joe Mazzulla coach team could tank. He is a
Yeah,
psychopath. But two,
that's fair.
do you think that this has more to do with people underestimating what the load that Jalen Brown could carry as just the option 1A? Because if this is the
Oh.
version of Jalen Brown that you have,
Mm-hmm.
how are you supposed to tank by not playing Jalen Brown? I don't think that was we kind of mentioned it in jest like previously. You're not going to put Jalen Brown on like the Kawhi Leonard program. Like, you just play like 41 games this year, you'll be fine. It was just never going to happen like that. And so
Right.
I think if anything, what they're doing now is a testament to everybody involved: Jalen Brown, Joe Mazzulla, the guys they found. But it also kind of speaks to, all right, tanking in this Eastern Conference. Look at what that entailed. Look at the Wizards. Look at the
Mm-hmm.
Nets. Like, you were just never gonna be this bad. I think the cardinal critique then would be, and I would disagree with this, is that, well, then they should have traded Derek White over the summer. They should have looked at trading Jalen Brown, or they should have really, if they wanted to tank, they should have really stripped it down. Now that that's kind of passed, I'm leaning into this. I'm not giving up like 4 first round picks to go out and get whoever. And like their salary matching tools are really weird. But if they get someone who maybe draws fouls on this team with the ball in his hands, or like,
Right.
I know a lot of people think that they might already be set at center, their center of the future with Kada. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at other bigs. Um, I am curious to see what they try to do with the tax, though. I know I keep going back to
Right.
that, but 12,
No, it's a fair
12
point.
million's a lot to cut. I had thought I can't remember who first mentioned this, but maybe like a Anthony Simons for Colin Sexton type trade. Don't think that gets you all the way there, but probably within striking distance ahead of the draft. And that's, with Sexton's driving, maybe he adds some, like foul drawing to your offensive mix. There, because you and I differ on them so much, it speaks to how complicated they are as a
Yeah.
trade season candidate.
Well, I will say this. I mean, I'm talking about what they should have done. I do agree with you that the ship has sort of sailed. They won 15 games already. They're not gonna, win 5 games the rest of the way, even if they do make alterations. They've just won too much. They're just too high up. Well, I don't feel like they should compound the issue by going out and leaning into an acceleration of what they're doing right now. And that is not what you're suggesting either. Like you're just leaning into the current vibe of the team. So in totality, I agree that given the situation that they're in, but I do want to acknowledge I think that situation is fucked up by their own design. Um, yeah, avoiding the repeater tax is absolutely crucial. It's probably going to be like a Brooklyn oriented deal, I would imagine, for them to absorb. Like what they need to absorb 12? Is it 12 million?
12.1 is what they're over the
Okay.
tax by.
Yeah.
Anthony Simons for I don't think even that would do it. Like what is the Brooklyn could do it most easily, but what type of compensation because if you're Brooklyn, what's the value of having this lump
Right. That's
expiring
the
contract
issue.
to Anthony Simons?
That is the issue, right? So it might be a 3-team trade or something along those lines. I mean, we'll see, but it does feel like those two are at least engaged in some sort of like who blinks first situation. Because let's be real here, the Nets know what the Celtics are up against here. I I don't think they're just sitting there going, "Oh, we're just gonna let that available cap space just sort of wash out." No, they're waiting. They're absolutely waiting for the Celtics to like, okay, we need to avoid the repeater
Well,
tax.
the other route the Celtics have, this doesn't get them all the way there, but if they were just willing to lop off Sam Hauser, that's $10 million that I think other
Yeah,
teams would just take into their exceptions that I
yeah.
imagine would be pretty easy to do. And then you kind of go from there. But I don't know. That's weird. We have a comment in the chat from our video editor, Andrew Willett. Is Robert Williams a good enough, healthy backup center to go trade for to help this team? Yeah, and I mean that's the type of if you're leaning into this season, he's on an expiring contract. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what he would cost to get. Again, this is there. Honestly, Portland could probably use a Sam Hauser, like a Sam Hauser for Robert Williams trade. You're actually taking on money in that, I believe. So that's where it gets complicated. I think what is, to use the word complicated again, is how does Boston juggle what feel like dueling agendas to where there is the should we maximize our draft pick in the background? Even still, I don't know what that looks like. There's cutting the tax, and then it's well, how do we react to what's going on right now? And how you can't do all three things at once. You probably also let's stick to the two. Can you upgrade the center rotation or the ball handler rotation and duck the tax? That like you might have to pick one of those, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
so that's where it gets super challenging.
Yeah, I agree. Despite being third in the East, which should be celebrated, and I think we should. I think you're right that we should celebrate it because of the coaching staff and the players. I think those are not the people that I put anything on in this conversation. It is the team at large because I don't. But that's me. I will always believe that if a team like the Celtics find themselves in this situation where their superstar is out for a year and the draft class coming in is like ridiculously, almost pervertedly good, I will always lean draft. Always. I don't care if it's the Celtics, the Thunder. Well, the Thunder might
It's
get the high pick regardless because thank you, Clippers.
I guess I'm just not harping on that now. Does what though? I guess is more so my main point is
That
why I
is
can't.
fair. All right. I'm nagging about something that didn't happen. You're right. Okay. So the ducking of the tax is now the primary play.
So
Yes.
so what about is there like a construction here? Yeah, honestly, so Terrence Mann for Anthony Simons gets you out of the tax, but then you have Terrence Mann on your books moving forward. The Nets have what 15.3 million in
Mhm.
space. Dayron Sharp makes 6. They're like a Dayron, like does Dayron Sharp and Cameron Thomas for uh, Anthony Simons? Well, again, what do you have to give up to make that? Well, Haywood Highsmith would work. What about
And
Simons and Hauser,
Cam would have to waive his no trade clause.
which I think you can contribute to a real basketball team. That's how you prove your value. He does lose his bird
Mhm.
rights though. What
Yep.
about like a Dayron Sharp and Hayward Highsmith for? I mean, Anthony, that's too much. I think for Brooklyn to take back, be pretty close. So you could probably figure it out. But like, what a Hayward Highsmith, Dayron Sharp, and then small salary X or Cam Thomas
Yeah.
for Anthony Simons. That could be something they pursue. Uh, it feels like something that'll have to involve a third team. But
Yeah.
if I'm Boston, I think I'm probably looking to duck the tax first and upgrade the roster for this season second. Because they would
Yeah.
be, I could come up with bigs like, what would it cost to get Walker Kessler out of Utah right now? That fits the Boston's plan to wait until next season. Would you take a flyer on Derek Lively the second? What's Dallas's appetite for moving him? That could be fun.
Yeah, I would for sure. I believe in that upside.
Who's our next team, Mort? Who is fourth in the Eastern Conference?
The Toronto Raptors, according to Basketball Reference, at least. So yeah,
What's your
go ahead.
question for I'll take the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, okay.
I well, did you took the Celtics, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
My
did.
apologies. Yes, I did.
So my question for Toronto would be one, they're like $800,000 away from ducking the tax. I assume that's what they're going to do.
Yep.
I want to know how invested are they in improving the roster this season, and what do they view as their biggest need? Is it we need someone? Okay, Jacoby Walter, good on defense. Grady Dick, even if the shooting percentages aren't there, he puts a ton of pressure on defenses, but the clip isn't consistent.
Right.
Jamal Shed can be all over the place on offense. Can they get a role player who just fills the 3 and D 5, like just
Yeah.
checks both boxes and more? Like Ochai
Yeah.
Agbaji could be all over the place offensively. Or I think you can make a case. They've been killing it with Mamu at the 5, but he's not really like a paint protector type. So are you looking at that behind Jakob Pertl, and then you could play lineups with Mamu is also alongside that big? Are you looking at moving RJ Barrett, whose absence has kind of coincided with their recent slide? My other question for them is there a way for them to branch out their crunch time offense, which has really petered out? They are bottom 5. I know it's a small sample. Crunch time is inherently small samples. They're 26th in crunch time offensive rating, and it's very heavy on Brandon Ingram. And his shot making on tough looks has kind of plummeted back down to, or regressed to, let's call it the mean. This team seems like it could be really good. I'm just curious to see what do they view as their biggest need, and how invested are they in going out there and trying to address it this season?
Yeah. No, I think all of those are reasonable questions. The RJ Barrett situation to me is interesting because it still feels to me, despite their success this year, that they're like one wing, too many chefs in the kitchen kind of thing. And if that could also free up minutes for Colin Murray Boyles to get in, like you'd have to shift some people around a little bit on the positions, like Brandon playing more of the the traditional 2 or 3 with Barnes, coming in and out of like the 3 or 4. But just pivoting off RJ to provide CMB with more minutes is something that I would be incredibly intrigued by, because he's just so ready already defensively on the glass. Like the shot has looked surprisingly good. There's so much to love with this guy. The question is, if you're pivoting off RJ, who has this larger salary as well, you're going to get someone back. Is it going to be a playmaker? I think that would be interesting. Like Jamal Shed, just like you said, fine playmaker, kind of all over the place offensively in terms of the scoring column. Is there someone out there who can come in? Like you brought up Ayodosumu earlier for the Knicks. Could he be someone who's interesting here in this situation? Perhaps getting some of those expiring Chicago contracts inside there. A Zach Collins type, maybe like a Sumu Zach Collins situation for
Get Zach Collins all the way away from the Toronto Raptors. What are we doing here?
Oh, it's just an expiring contract. What's up? What is your
What is the
let,
you want to trade RJ
oh,
Barrett for Zach Collins? And by the way, the other thing is, do
and
you
I have
think?
Sumu, sir.
I guess fair. I would question, just CMB has had minutes be all over the place, even as RJ Barrett has missed time. I don't know that trading RJ Barrett would just open up minutes for
Right. That
CMB. They
actually,
play.
yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I don't
I
like that, by the way. He should play more.
Uh, yeah, I mean, but I don't actually think that when you're looking at their rotation, I'm okay with the way that Darko is kind of tried out different. I don't think you need to be married to your depth. Yeah, it'd be cool to see CMB
Okay.
get more minutes, but if you're concerned about offensive shot making at a point, like their offense has been pretty bad of late. We've seen their indicators across the board kind of fall during their most recent tough stretch. But I think when you look at the makeup of this lineup, I'd probably be
Mhm.
more concerned about the things that CMB is not going to help them address if he
Yeah.
is
All
playing
right.
more.
Wow. I mean, look, by the way, I did not expect this sort of reaction from you in terms of Zach Collins. Can I interest you in a slightly used Kevin Herter instead?
He'd be interesting for this team. Do you trust him to make shots more than Grady Dick? I know he probably does a little bit more defensively than Grady Dick, not
I
like
trust him
too
to be
much
more
more.
red haired than Grady Dick. Yes.
I didn't know that was sort of a prerequisite. But And
No, I
you mentioned
think ultimately, yes. In terms of the 3-point volume, like, yes, I trust him more. He's just had not the greatest year. But again, I would assume was the draw, though. And it's also the cap flexibility. Now, I know Dosumu is going to be like an unrestricted free agent after this year. So he's going to cost you in regards to retaining him. But I don't anticipate him costing more than Barrett, at least. I don't know. I just think there's some level of framework here that could kind of work.
I also don't know what to make of just when you've seen the returns. Again, they've been minimal of RJ and Brandon Ingram together. The Raptors offense is their defense, excuse me, the offense has been fine, but the defense, the Raptors in the 20th percentile when those two share the floor on defense. Opponents are getting to the rim a ton during those minutes. Some of those lineups that have Jakob Poeltl in them are getting absolutely roasted from three. And this team's roster construction, there's a lot of talent, but it's just so weird to where I don't know that you can, like, if you take out one player, if it was let's trade RJ, I think you might create other problems because you were there talking about a ball handler. You're getting a secondary ball handler back. I know a lot of Raptors fans, rightfully so for the most part, don't trust IQ in that role, but I think his gravity on off the ball as a shooter, even when he's not always making shots, is too important to the team. There's a lot of different directions they could go. We have Alt Rock in the chat saying Derek White would be awesome. Derek White would probably be awesome for
That's a
lots of
good
teams.
shout by Alt Rock, because I actually remember doing a pod on a Danish pod where we were talking about a framework of RJ for Derek White. That's not a bad shout. That's interesting. Derek White would be a tremendous fit there. Like, not high volume, obviously a 3-point threat. Defensively, we can trust him. We in terms of the playmaking acumen, he's there. That's a really good shout. Yeah. More Derek White for Toronto.
I mean, that would be I think Derek White would probably be a fantastic fit on 29 other teams that aren't Boston. I just don't know what's their appetite. Like, that's the trade that's costing you salary, multiple first round picks, and I would assume Colin Murray Boyles. You're not getting out of that without giving up a prospect.
No, that's interesting. I don't think I had Derek White pegged as that level of value, though. But that's interesting. Like, what is his value actually in a vacuum, Derek White?
I probably would have been, to be fair, probably would have been higher in the summer than it is now.
Yeah.
But I don't think 2 first round picks alone is getting you Derek White. And so if you're the Raptors, would you prefer?
Really?
Are you going through? You think the Raptors put the 2026 first round pick and a 2028 first round pick on the table plus salary that it's getting them Derek White? When they're not the team that can save Boston any money.
Right. No, so yeah, that's fair. So maybe it's a 3-team trade in some capacity. It's just like the overall, I don't know. No, you might be right. It's just when I hear 2 first-round draft picks for Derek White, my brain kind of breaks, but that actually might not be that bad of a deal. I think under the new CBA, or the apron era, as I like to refer to as, I think a Derek White contract is not necessarily as attractive to have, given also the age, and then 2 firsts. When we know that picks are now at a premium, they're worth so much in terms of like having the 4 years locked in pretty much at a substantially cheaper rate to help you avoid the aprons altogether. Like, 2 picks, 2 firsts. It seems aggressive, but I can also.
So you thought it was going to be less? I don't know. Like, if it's 1 first round pick, I think Boston. Honestly, I think if the Raptors, just because this basically works money wise, it should.
Yeah.
RJ Barrett and 2 first round picks for Derek White. I would be shocked if Boston said yes to that.
You know what? And it's fair because he's that good. 28, 30, 32. And then he's probably going to opt in 28 because that's almost 35 million. Let's be real. He's opting into that.
Well, we don't know what the landscape is going to look like at that point, though, either. I don't know. 3 years and
we know it's 3 years away, though.
All right, so it's 3. You're on the hook for 3 years and about 100 million for Derek White after this season, correct? I would give up. If I'm the Raptors, I'd probably make that trade, just to be clear. And I've liked what RJ has done since he's been in Toronto, but you also need the team that's getting. I don't know. I don't think Boston would value RJ the same way Toronto would.
No, they
would.
wouldn't.
That would be similarly, not with Tatum and Brown there.
Yeah. So that's the third team, perhaps someone who is
Can I,
looking into RJ.
so can I
Yeah,
pose what I believe would be a more real? We've had Day'Ron Sharpe mentioned. I actually think I wrote about him at Bleacher Report. Day'Ron Sharpe would make sense if you want to go big. You know who I've had my eye on for them? And he's not Derek White light because he can't handle the ball or pass like he could. What about Keon Ellis for this team? Just as sort of that guy comes in, defends, and hits threes. You know, it's like done. There's like we can round out like our one of our best 5-man units with him. You know, you have Scotty, Ingram, Quickly, and Ellis could play together. Futz and Fiddle in the middle if you want. Mamu, Colin Murray, Boyles. You
yeah,
also have Jakob Poeltl, of course. I really like the idea of. I think that's what this team, just relative to how because it's kind of expensive for a team that, yes, we're talking about them in the top half of the Eastern Conference, but we're not talking about them as if they're on the precipice of title contention necessarily. I think I was higher on the Raptors than most. I didn't see them necessarily being. There was a point where they were one of 3 teams in the top 7 of offense and defense. So I like Keon Ellis for them because I think
yeah,
maybe you could probably duck the tax while getting him. He's so cheap. And who knows how much he costs to retain. But even if he's just a stopgap, he fits in every single lineup construction they could possibly
yeah.
build.
That's true. I don't hate that whatsoever. That's interesting.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
I
Our
know.
our next team, the Orlando Magic, who got a bit of good news relative to it being bad news, where
Yeah.
Franz Wagner is going to be reevaluated in 2 to 4 weeks after suffering what it ends up being a calf strain. Is that what they diagnosed it as, or is
It
it
wasn't a
leg
high ankle. I think it was a
high
high
ankle
ankle
sprain?
sprain. But like, okay, I just want to note that was the initial diagnosis for Lonzo Ball as well, back in the day. So I'm just
Doomsday much, homie?
no, but I'm just trying to say, like, let's give Franz Wagner and the Orlando Magic the basically the space to operate within this. Like, if it's 2 to 4 weeks, great. I'm all for it if he's fully healthy and back. Because I was covering this game, I was calling this game over on HBO Max, and that looked bad. That looked so bad. He was grabbing his knee before his body had even hit the ground, sir.
Oh yeah, looked.
That
And then when they zoomed in on the angle that his
yeah.
leg looked, I thought for sure there was something done in like the quad or maybe even like
Yeah.
the ACL area.
Yeah, it looks so bad. So I'm just like I'm just not gonna point my finger at the Orlando Magic if the 4-week thing is going and like it's coming and going, and they're gonna be like, hey, you know what? We're gonna take it a couple extra weeks. Just like take whatever time you need because that looked bad. But in terms of my question, I could be provocative right now. I'm
Do it.
considering being provocative. Do it?
Do
All
it.
right, fair enough. So, can you really get, into the depths of the playoffs when your presumed best player is basically the new era DeMar DeRozan?
My God. But that's a weird thing to say about Franz Wagner, especially when he's
No,
not even
okay,
playing.
fair enough. The second best player in that case.
So your question is, do you think that they can actually
Do I
coexist?
trust Paolo Banchero is the ultimate question here. Now, and I will preface this by saying something because I actually do like Paolo Banchero. I actually do. I think he's got so many skills. I think his ability to get to the foul line is fantastic. I do like his playmaking, although I think it's been overstated a bit. He comes off as someone who understands the concept of team basketball, but is unfortunately forced into just milking the clock up to absurd amounts occasionally. So I don't think the position that he's been put in is always the greatest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just like we have to look at this realistically. He's getting paid an absolute crap ton of money. He is going to feature as one of the 2 best players on this team for a long time. And I'm just asking the question, right? I'm just asking question, Dan. And there might be an article coming up on Yahoo about this, by the way, in some point in time. I'm just wondering if Paolo Banchero is too difficult to probably build around in order for them to make like a big move or, up the standings. His 3-point shot has never come around. He's not really that dangerous off ball. He's not being used as a play finisher all that well. His efficiency is usually meh. So I'm just, and like, if he had the ball to the extent that he did, and he was an elite passer and elite playmaker for others, all right, then that gets interesting. But he's good. He's not elite in that department. So I'm just, whenever I watch him play, and I watch him play a ton, I always come away thinking he could have been used differently, and he shouldn't have that big of a role. And 3, if we're looking ahead 2 or 3 years, or even just ahead to this year, is he going to be able to come into the playoffs and be a difference maker? And so far, I'm just not personally, at least, that encouraged yet. Although I hope to be wrong, Orlando fans.
I think he's going to be fine. There's a lot of what people have pointed to was they were top 10 in offense and defense while Paolo was out with Franz. In the 7 games before Paolo got injured, they were also in the top 10 of offense and defense with both of them. I think there are concerns and redundancies they needed to figure out on offense. I've been encouraged where, for the most part, and we'll see if the Franz injury changes this, that Paolo Banchero has looked like he's trying to fit into what they were doing. And while he was out, and this is the thing that I think Paolo has the ability to change, nobody ran more off of missed shots than Orlando. Nobody was more efficient in transition overall during that stretch than Orlando. And when you start to break down the on-off numbers, I think this season's are the only one that matters because you can go back to all these other seasons, but Desmond Bane wasn't on the team. And that's the other variable here is they're still not struggling, but like Desmond Bane is really just yet to be off and running. He's had an uneven season. And how does that variable fit into the mix? But I think that they were playing faster with Paolo overall this year than they were last season. But can he fit into just what they were doing after those rebounds where it feels like his first inclination is if he gets the ball or he grabs a rebound, like he's going to slow things down. I think that would go a long way. It also just, I don't know that they're in a position to, I know we're asking the question about Paolo. I don't know if they're in a position to say that he is the issue. Like with Franz, just Franz this season, they had a 1.3 net rating. Okay, cool. Their offense was 49th percentile of a fit. Like, it's worse for Paolo, but I don't know that just removing him from the equation, I don't think fixes a ton of stuff. And honestly, I think the bigger thing is, and look, we've seen Paolo have it in the playoffs. They've been kind of brief performances, to be sure, but he's had some really big playoff moments. I think this team needs to continue to lean into optimizing the spacing around them. And so it's, can they get maybe another wing type shooter on this team that's an upgrade from a Tristan Da Silva, or just someone who will be guarded differently than an Anthony Black, who's had a really good season as well.
Yeah, he's been good.
Looming over all this, by the way, and I would think the Franz injury coupled with Paolo being injured before, they're $5.6 million into the tax. You've just paid Paolo. Franz's extension has already kicked in. You have Desmond Bane. I'm assuming they're going to try and duck it. And they're more than a Jet Howard salary dump away from doing it. They also have only 14 people on the roster. So if you trade Jet Howard, you're going to invariably need to get someone else. Is there a way? This is something I thought of. If you could do, like, what's the compensation for Jonathan Isaac and Jet Howard to bring back Corey Kispert from Washington?
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Because Kispert, everyone looks at him as just a shooter. But
big cutter.
He's such an elite finisher around the rim. Such an elite finisher. And has been for the vast majority of his career. So that would give them an entirely different component as well. That is a good name for a bad situation that might actually come in and have a really good ripple effect. What was the compensation level for Washington? That is the allure of Jet Howard, right?
And you're looking at basically functionally between Jonathan Isaac and Jet Howard there. I mean, Isaac might be interesting as a defender, but his season has not been good this year at either end of the floor, really. It's expiring contracts, but you're giving up Corey Kispert. Orlando's not giving up. I don't even, what first do they have to trade aside from swaps at this point after the Desmond Bane trade? So that's where I ran into the issue of, okay, what does it take? Seconds? How many seconds does it take to do, or seconds just not enough? I've questioned whether you would get, and if I'm Washington, I might just not move him then, but I don't think anyone's just giving you an outright first-round pick for Corey Kispert.
No. I would be shocked at that as well. That is interesting. I don't hate that framework. I wonder if Orlando is focused on trying to pivot off Tyus Jones, though. And I think, well, look, we can sit here and laugh because he's had a horrible, horrible season. But are we sure that NBA teams are going to look at that and go, oh, well, this is who he is after he's just had 3 really strong years? Are they going to take a 24-game size?
He didn't have a strong year in Phoenix last year either. So now you kind of have you have to
Well,
wonder like how prominent a part of your, let's say, second unit or secondary rotation does
right.
he need to be to have the intended impact?
Yeah, all right. I see. I wouldn't say he had a bad year in Phoenix, but I also think like circumstances just forced him into a
Yeah,
tough
he was
situation.
not used optimally
Right,
in Phoenix by any
right.
stretch. No.
So, like, I just think there's more to him. Like, at 7 million, I wouldn't be surprised if a good team came in and said, "Oh yeah, having him run the second unit, I don't hate that."
That guy, I mean,
I
if you just offload him and it's like taking back smaller money, that could be the mechanism
yeah,
by which you get out of the
yeah,
tax too.
yeah. I think that would be the framework, if anything.
Do you think that the injury to Franz specifically, I know he's projected to probably be back before the trade deadline, but do you think that impacts their approach to the trade deadline at all? Just because they don't have a ton of information on their best guys together at this point. When you look at how many minutes specifically, what's the 5-man lineup everyone wants to see a ton of? Suggs, Franz, Paolo, uh, Wendell Carter Jr., and who did I leave out? Oh, Desmond Bain. Like, you just don't, the sample size on that is so minuscule at this point. By the time Franz comes back, I'll say 4 weeks would be ideal.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, we are into January 10th, around there. I just don't know what verdicts you're going to draw. Again, they didn't have a ton of assets to begin with. I'm just curious as to whether they look at this team and not that they pump the brakes a little bit, but are they less reticent to do more than just how do we get out of the tax?
I would be surprised if they want to make big moves, just depending on the injuries. One thing, Paolo and Franz as well. We have to acknowledge they've sort of taken turns being injured. Like, that's been a thing for a while now. Yeah, it's a good question if they were willing to go the extra mile, do something different. I don't assume so. Like, I feel like when the Magic generally do stuff, it's like one big thing, like the Desmond Bain trade, and then there's like a tail to that where it's just like, oh, it's silent for a long time until they do something again. I could be wrong that because they have Franz and Paolo and Desmond Bain, who they got this summer as well, and Anthony Black is looking good, perhaps that gives them enough mental ammunition to go out and say, hey, you know what? Let's lean into this thing and just go full on using that Jonathan Isaac contract. But it's still the Magic, so I'm wondering if they're willing to go that far.
And also, I think you could look and say what their 8-man rotation. So you're Franz, at one healthy, Franz, Paolo, Bain, Suggs, Black, Carter Jr., De Silva, and Batadze are all just guys you trust at this point, right?
To a certain extent, more than others, yes.
That's your 8-man rotation right there. And are you just comfortable trying to fill in with Isaac and Jones and some Noah Penda? And that's where it's just
well, do I feel so in terms of what? That's probably my question. In like, do I feel comfortable in like the depths of the
you have to
playoffs?
upgrade
No.
from. I'm saying if you're the Magic, you're gonna make a move beyond. We're trying to duck the tax. You have to upgrade from the 8-man rotation that I just met. They're like, you're not upgrading the projected starting or closing 5 at this point.
I don't
That's
think so.
That should be one of the best in basketball. So that would be why I don't think they should have an appetite. But if you could get someone that you think is, maybe he is better, maybe not than Black, but like if you think you can get someone better than De Silva or someone better than Batadze, doesn't necessarily have to play the same position, but you view them as a 6th or 7th guy in your pecking order, maybe you consider it. I just think that given the way the season has unfolded, if they weren't likely to do it before, it's next to nil now. But I would predict, maybe it doesn't happen by the trade deadline, perhaps by the draft. I think that they're going to make it a point to get out of the tax this year. Our next team, Mort, is the Miami Heat, 6th place in the Eastern Conference. They are my team. My question for them is, what are they allowed to do at the trade deadline? Is Terry Rozier tradable? Do they have an extra first-round pick in their clip from that deal that they're allowed to give up? But my real question for them is, what are they actually looking to do at the trade deadline? Because I just have so many questions for them. Part of it is we've talked a lot about, look how fast they're playing. It's so cool. Like they've reinvented themselves. They're 13th in points scored per possession. Like, that's better than league average, but it's not like they're setting the world on fire. They've also, I've seen a lot of, if defenses crack the Miami Heat's offense of late. I mean, maybe, but like they do not finish well. For as much as they get out in transition, they're not always finishing well. They flubbed a lot of layups or they have weird takeoff points. I think they need to look at, they have these one-track minds when they get in transition where, yeah, you want to get to the basket, but it's not illegal to try and work the corners, have guys kind of fan out and work those. But I am wondering, also, we saw this, it was the game against, I think it was the Magic. I saw down the stretch, that was a crunch time game. Miami starts throwing all these ball screens out there, which is not something that they had done. And by all these ball screens, I think it was like 3 consecutive possessions they had Bam Adebayo set a high ball screen. Do they need someone like who is more accustomed to bringing that element of their offense, or do you look at trying to bring someone in who fits into what you're doing? And you could maybe do both. The name I've had pegged for them would be super interesting. But also, I need to ask this question first. I'm all over the place with them. This is the Heat. What are they willing to do? If it's Giannis, yeah, whatever. But are they willing to take on longer-term money, or is it we want to buy low? Like, what does it cost to get Zion right now? Is it just matching salary? And can that matching salary, can Terry Rozier be part of it? He'd be so interesting. I know they have Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo here, but he could probably play alongside either one of them. And finally, before I throw it to you, are you even sold on the Bam Adebayo Khalil Ware dynamic? I'm just not. I know that Ware has had a really good season, but when they're together, Miami's lost those minutes. Both of those dudes are shooting much worse from inside the arc because they've branched out their game to the three-point line, but I don't think that's inherently what they're best at or what they want to do. So there are some just spatial redundancies there, or maybe instinctual redundancies. I have a lot, like, this Heat team it's friskier than I thought, but they feel built sort of like a placeholder. And I wonder if their trade deadline is going to follow suit to where they want to make upgrades, but it's going to be buy low upgrades. And the other thing too, I think that Tyler Hero, very important to this team because I think that they could stand to change up their offense from time to time. He fits within it, but if you want to run some more high ball screen sets, that's someone like who's the perimeter player. If you're running those types of actions, you'd want the ball in their hand, like not Norman Powell. So it would be Tyler Hero would be the pick there.
So we're on to the Philadelphia 76ers because Stan has just broken down everything. No, listen, first and foremost, the Bam Khalil Ware thing, I'm also skeptical. I don't think I'm out yet, like officially out, but I am circling the drain on that one too. They do need someone who's a high up tempo playmaker, someone who can get into the trenches. Like you said, they have the quickest offense in the league, but it's not particularly effective. One of the reasons why is as much as I love Davion Mitchell, who's really found his role here and is averaging almost 8 assists per game, he is not necessarily someone who you fear in transition as a scorer as well. So who is that guy who can come down the floor off of misses, push the ball, who can make decisions with the ball in his hands? Like, and when I say decisions, I mean good decisions where they know, yeah, I can take it all the way to the rack. I can spray it outside to the 3. Oh, I have a trailer right behind me who I can dump it off to. Who is that guy? Tyler Hero. He's never been that guy. He's probably never going to be. Davion Mitchell, a little bit more conservative as a passer, although he's solid in a half-court setting. Up-tempo, not really. Jaime Jaquez, also more of like a slow-it-down type of half-court guy who will find the fun angles and stuff. Who is that guy, Dan, who will just run the floor freaking relentlessly, throwing dimes all over the place and get other people in scoring opportunities? It's also not Norman Powell. Norman Powell, historically noted anti-playmaker, at least if for anyone but himself. Not that that's an issue, because he is arguably one of the best shooting guard play finishers in the league as of right now, who we're not talking enough about. So perhaps this is a question of Miami maybe solving 2 things, with one throw, which is the Bam stuff. Like, can you pivot off Bam and get like a type of elite playmaker onto this team who can just run the freaking show? And if so, who? Like, what?
Well, who would you want to trade Bam for? That would, Giannis, I guess, but I feel like you'd probably want to pair them together. I don't.
Giannis? No, yeah, like Giannis and Bam, sure, but it's just all right. So for me, I'm going the long road. Like you would have pivot off Khalil Ware, I can assume.
No, I don't even say I want to pivot off him. It's I'm not trading Khalil Ware for Zion Williamson as an example,
right?
But I just have questions about their fit, and I wouldn't be as opposed to, like, I'd seen some stuff that Miami wouldn't want to give up Khalil Ware in a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then it's tough shit. Then you're not going to have any chance of getting Giannis. So I'm wondering if it even. So you think it needs to be that not Giannis level, but it needs to be a bigger swing. Where I was looking at it, they've tried to conserve, it feels like, flexibility leading into 2027. So is there someone that fits into that financial planning motif? Because the offense is interesting to watch. You named all these players. Like Jaime Jaquez has been fun a lot of the time this season to watch.
Yeah, he has.
But you do need to upgrade the efficiency and I think the ability to play make out of these situations. And I don't, I'm sure fans will write this off, but like a LaMelo Ball, he's injured again. He'd be interesting for this team if he was healthy. But is there someone, like, I meant more so of just a smaller, medium scale move. I also don't buy into the reporting. It did come from Jake Fisher, who's super plugged in, that Miami's had conversations about John Morant, because it makes no sense. He was upset about Memphis's offense last year when they didn't have enough ball screens. Now Miami wants to integrate him into this offense that doesn't use ball screens.
Right. Do you think players think that far ahead, though?
Well, the other thing is that Miami did hire LaRoche to help install this offense, and was he not the coach who was responsible for it in Memphis? John Morant has to at least be thinking that doesn't require him thinking like 8 moves ahead. Yeah.
So in terms of like answering a question whether it needs to be that big of a move, technically not. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying it has to be. But it does feel like somewhat of an inevitability, because like this team has gotten younger suddenly out of nowhere. Really, their young guys have started popping. Like Pelle Larsson as well is starting to look like a fully fledged rotation player. Like they are young, or at least their young guys are hitting. That's interesting to me. Like, is it the time to pivot a little bit off of some of the veterans who have, I don't want to say stagnated because that's the wrong word, but like, Bam is Bam. He's been Bam for a long time. He's extremely good defensively. We know that offensively, it varies. Is that the kind way to say it? Like, he'll have games where he just is a complete non-factor, and he'll have games where he pops off for 30. It's very inconsistent in that regard. So perhaps there would be something interesting in trying to just make the offense more perimeter oriented without him. But again, you're also losing rebounding, you're losing interior playmaking, you're losing a ton of fun stuff that he does provide you. So this is difficult. And they've been star hunting for what feels like 4 years now. Like, it feels like they've tried to get someone in there. I just don't know which name they're thinking. Is it Zion? Is it someone who isn't tough to build around? Because Zion certainly is. I just don't know which way they're going. And you're muted, by the way, so if you're trying to answer me.
The Zion thing feels more of, it could be born from convenience, to where New Orleans is done and they just want Sal. And imagine if Terry Rozier is allowed to be a part of any trade, then it gets easier for them to match the money. And so you could take a YOLO shot on him. But I don't think they look at him or a LaMelo or anybody along those lines, and that's the guy that they've just been sort of planning around.
Right. Who would that playmaker even be? Like, we talked about, the league is coming up short on point guards now. Like, the real playmakers,
well, they want them to have, I think teams prefer them to have size too.
Right.
And so it's just, I mean, Kobe White doesn't do anything for me for that. I'd rather just Tyler Hero in the 5, what does he play, 5 games or whatever it's been?
Yeah. It's early. Yeah.
So just before he's out again, I thought he looked better than I was expecting coming out of that. So if it's any of the names, if it would cost you actual stuff, they don't move me enough to say, yeah, Giannis would be the one guy, but I don't know that his playmaking going downhill is better than anyone else's on the Heat right now. So yeah, that would make a huge difference if you get him. But straddling that middle ground, I don't want to say it's Zion or bust, but I mean, Benedict Mathurin would make a lot of sense for this team, but not not from a playmaking standpoint.
No.
So I don't expect them to do anything too huge, but they're just a team to watch because they've been a little friskier. Another team, Mort, the Philadelphia 76ers. Can we just point out how wild it is that we've yet to reach the Cleveland Cavaliers by going in standings order? But go ahead. What's your question for the Cavs? I mean, what's your question for the Sixers?
So it's actually tough to come up with a question for them, because as far as I'm concerned, when they have, no, it's unfair to say dead money in terms of Joel Embiid and Paul George, but it might as well be. Like, they're not exactly long-term pieces for this team. They're limited in what they can offer you on the floor. So I guess my question is, overall, how do they go about this? Like, how do they enter the trade season with the mindset of building? Because they should build around Tyrese Maxey. He's their best player, obviously. How do they build around that, elephant in the room of Paul George and Joel Embiid's cap hits, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I have no answers for any Philadelphia
Right.
76ers question. I don't think that they're going to be buyers. I don't think they're going to be looking, but I just don't even know how you go about, if you even want to move those deals and say you don't want to build around them or figure out how to flesh out a roster around them. How do you go about getting off one of those contracts?
Right. You pay up a ton of picks, I guess, or whatever you have at your disposal moving forward, but that's also just putting you at a major disadvantage in regards to building around Maxey. This all just seems very, very difficult and very tricky.
They feel a little stuck, but I guess they're not stuck because they have a lot of high or upside guys, but they also feel a little stuck.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's a little. I think it's a lot. They're very stuck here because it's what was it this year alone? Is it 106 million they're just sitting on with those two guys? That's ton.
It's up there, and they got 3 more years of Joel Embiid's extension starts next season.
Yeah, which is just, I mean, and look, they've been so good at finding guys like the Quentin Grimes trade. By the way, kudos to the Sixers as well on this because he picked up his qualifying offer. There are some teams out there who are like, oh, you know what? Then we're not going to play you that much because then that's our attempt to get you back at a discount next year. They're still playing him 33 minutes per game coming off the bench primarily. So I respect them for also just acknowledging, hey, you have talent, you feel a need here. Let's just make sure you're on the floor, despite the fact that we're giving a lot of minutes to VJ Edgecombe, to Tyrese Maxey. But
they're playing very small a lot of the time, though, which I would be worried about in the playoffs.
Right. Kelly Oubre hasn't played much this year, so he'll add some size if he can prove that he's healthy over a long stretch. Trenton Watford, 6'8", I think. No, I like.
I'm surprised it took you this long to. I know. I'm surprised it took you this long to mention him.
I know. See, I'm trying to reel myself in. I would also like to compliment you. You only brought up Reed Shepherd once, and this is an Eastern Conference podcast. I'm very impressed.
Look, there's still time.
Yeah, there's still time.
But by the way, the other element of all this is they're $7.3 million into the tax. That's a number to where it's like, look at where they are in the standings. Look at what they have to contend with moving forward, especially if they want to pay Quentin Grimes beyond this season. Do you look? I'm sure you could. I don't know if this is a prudent use of assets, but I'm sure a team would take on Kelly Oubre Jr., and he should just about get you there. What is he making this season? He's in the 7s, right? So that gets you pretty close, or is he 8, which would be even better for the Sixers, obviously. So I don't know if that would be a focus, but it wouldn't shock me if they go, he's at 8.4. So, and that's not a guy you just want to give up, but you could do it with Quentin Grimes at 8.7, but he has the implicit no trade, and his bird rights aren't going to transfer. So unless he's just resigned to getting the mid-level exception, does he even accept a trade? And I think if you want to do something this season, if Joel Embiid's on the roster, it's just your big man rotation is what it is. You have him, you have Andre Drummond, you are going to have Dominic Barlow playing a Dembona filling in minutes. Can they get like an actual sized wing on this team who's not really Paul George or Kelly Oubre Jr., might give you a little bit more defensively than Najee Marshall would make a lot of sense for this team. But again, it comes back to what are you willing? They have interesting trade assets, not the least of which is that Clippers 2028 first round pick. So they wanted to go all in, but like, could they get a Tari Eason? Like, is there something there with Houston that they could, like a Jared McCain for Tari Eason deal might be interesting
for the Sixers? Sure.
You don't think that you wouldn't want the extra, like looking beyond Reed Shepherd long-term in Houston? You don't view Jared McCain 2 years left on his rookie scale?
No, you're right. You're right. The salary component does make a difference. I do agree with that. That's fair. In terms of just, in isolation and in a vacuum, I wouldn't hate it. Or I would hate it for Houston, but I would actually really hate it for Houston.
What is it about Tari Eason that has you so pilled?
Oh, look, we'll get to him next episode. If
sure,
because we have another.
We're just assuming
he's going.
we're just going to assume he shoots 50+% and finally from three and finally
No,
stays
it's
healthy.
the
He's a
versatility.
really good player.
I also want him to be put into, okay, fine, fuck it. It's the Sixers anyway. They're stuck. Like, we have answered the question.
Well,
are they stuck? Yes. Eason, to me, I mean, I watched him a ton in college as well. The transition thing, he's never been given the role that I think he should have offensively. Defensively, he just makes things work. He's what I call, a defensive playmaker. Offensively, I think he's been put too much into half-court situations, which I low-key hate because I think he would be such a ridiculously good transition player. Like, if you put him on Miami right now as primarily a play finisher, well, you'd have to put a guard alongside him to actually give them the ball. But that would be so interesting to me. Now, that was the Tari Eason bit. In terms of the Sixers, I do have a question for you. That draft pick, or just whatever draft pick they can scrunch up that are attractive, would you rather go out and make a move that makes them better using those draft picks, or would you rather use them to get off the Embiid or especially the Paul or the Joel Embiid contract?
Here's a scenario. There have to be other moving parts involved. You give back the Clippers their 2028 pick, the 2029 swap, trade them Joel Embiid, and you get Zubats and Kawhi Leonard. There'd have to be other moving parts in there.
Yeah.
And the Clippers can look at it. I don't know if the Clippers aren't getting back their own 26 and 27 picks. I don't know what the appetite is for that, but getting back control over those two first-round picks, even if it was you take back Joel Embiid and it's Kawhi going out and Zubats isn't involved or whatever. Would that accomplish both? The Sixers would get better. And
that's interesting. I like that. Kawhi, that he would be such a ridiculous and immediate upgrade. I know he's older. I know he still earns a lot of money this year and next year, but that contract is not long.
Nope.
He might not play every single game. We know for a fact that he won't. But when he's healthy, oh my. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs last year. The amount of ceiling racing that he would give them is frankly absurd. Yeah, that's interesting. Would they bite?
I wonder who bite?
The Clippers.
If you're getting back control of your two first-round picks, you have to at least consider it, right? Because you could also talk yourself into. But you could say the 2 years that you don't have your pick, that it's going to OKC. You could say, well, maybe we just catch lightning in a bottle with Embiid, and we're good enough. By the way, the other thing, Grant and I talked about this, is what if you were the Clippers and you went to OKC and said, we will give you 2030, 2031 as a swap, 2032. And Ivica Zubats for Ousmane Dieng, Kenrich Williams, and then our next two picks back. Now, the appeal for OKC would be, Zubats is going to be cheaper than Hartenstein. You could also, maybe you trade Zubats to Indiana and get another first-round pick, but you're getting those out-year picks. You're getting 3 for 2, while getting Zubats, who has value to you either after you let Hartenstein go or just as another trade asset. And I would argue, from OKC's perspective, oh my God, they're punting on this whatever pick in 2026. One, the Clippers might just turn things around. They're not going to be a contender, but they're probably, I would assume, they're not going to have an incentive to be bad so long as they don't have those picks. And if you're OKC, I would also argue integrating, just to use the high-end names, in AJ DeBinsa or a Cam Boozer. I know OKC of all teams could do it, but you know you're going to be good enough in 26, 27. You might even be willing to bite the salary bullets through 2028. If you start having first-round picks that you could either move around for different assets or you're able to continue filling the pipeline beyond these years, you don't have any extra first-round picks aside from your own in 30, 31, 32. I think most people would say I'm insane, and the Thunder would say no, but I would consider it if I were the Thunder. Look, I just got the Clippers back I got them back all 4 of their next first-round picks. You're welcome, Los Angeles.
Great. And that was the team we were talking about. Sure.
Well, the Philly was adjacent to it. But here's the wrap-up question on Philly. Do you think they're more likely to make a move that improves their team or improves their tax bill?
Improves the tax bill, honestly.
So do I. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah. We are on to, finally, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I never would have guessed in a million, zillion, trillion years that it would have taken us this long to get to them, and we were going by record. My question for them, Mort, is very simple.
Yeah.
Should we be concerned?
Well, all right. So when people started freaking out about the way they lost in the playoffs that last year, I thought that was a little bit dramatic because they'd only had Kenny Atkinson for that year. That was his debut season in Cleveland as a head coach. I figured, and they just went through a bit of an injury period at that specific point in time. I was like, look, that's just too many issues. Like, that will iron itself out come next year. They'll be fine. I'm not overly concerned because Garland obviously has only played 9 games. He's been in and out of the lineup. That's
Allen has played in what, 10? Is he up to 10 games or whatever it is?
Jared Allen, he's 15.
15, sorry.
15.
I apologize.
But you're right. He's been in and out.
Oh, he's missed 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also he just hasn't been that good this year when he's been healthy, which
Yeah, it's been the whole, even when he's healthy, it feels like they're playing Mobley at the 5 more, which is, I don't know if you consider that ideal or not if you're the Cavs.
They're also integrating Jalen Tyson, which I think is something that
he's been good.
He's been good, but like they're integrating him in a way where, he wasn't really a part of that whole thing last year. So like that's a brand new component you're adding to it, more wing oriented. So no, am I concerned right now? No. If we're looking at the same picture in about a month, the answer changes. Yes.
I'm not concerned either, and I would echo a lot of what you said and just also add their best 4 guys have played 57 minutes together so far this year, during which time they have a net rating of almost 31. So I know injury stuff might always be there. Do we think that this is the new version of Darius Garland? I would say no. If the concern would be, is he just not going to be healthy this year, which is certainly on the table. I guess there's concerns about if you wanted Evan Mobley to be the number 1 option. It feels like it takes too much for him for them to create advantages for him on offense or for him to create his own advantages. That's something, I guess, to look at. But this is still just the too much of Evan Mobley's basically a role player takes that I've seen over the past couple weeks are just, it feels like a fundamental disconnect from this team. And if they were to do anything, I would say, could you try and do something to get, DeAndre Hunter is fine, but I think you could probably make the case on certain nights that if Max Strus ever gets healthy, will give you just as much on defense while more on offense. But this team is just like Sam Merrill's missed a bunch of time. I just can't bring myself to have a strong opinion of I know we're doing the injury thing with Cleveland every year, but I think this team is really good, and it kind of falls in the same bucket as the Knicks, where if you picked them to come out of the East, you're probably not feeling any better about your pick, but should you be feeling that much worse based off what you've seen this year and the injuries they've dealt with? But look, if they could go out, because they have first-round picks to trade, by the way. So if they wanted to they're not going to get out of the second apron. They're $22 million in. But if you could put first-round equity on the table and get Herb Jones, is that someone that you like is like a better sort of 5th on this team than a Max Strus or a DeAndre Hunter? Or you would prefer? I think Strus is kind of the standard bearer there, right? We would agree, or do you think that?
Yeah, no, I think so. Because with Herb Jones, his shooting, we've seen it go up and down. I'm not in that camp where
I guess the Herb Jones thing for me was if you did want to play Mobley more at the 5 and you think maybe you're going to increasingly close, it feels like Herb Jones would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. Defensively, they'd be ridiculously good. I wonder if they need something more off the bench in terms of not offensive firepower, because they do have a lot when you really think about it.
The problem is everything we're doing is, unless you just think that they're not going to be healthy at any point this season, I don't think you need to do anything. They've been mentioned as a Giannis dark horse too. I don't see Darius Garland, Allen, and your picks. Maybe maybe the Bucks would bite on that. I guess the other thing you could do is, would you trade? This seems. I don't even know I could wrap my head around it. Would you trade Evan Mobley for Giannis? Evan Mobley and first-round picks for Giannis?
Straight up?
The other salary has to be in. Maybe not. The other salary, would have. There would be other teams because, or maybe not because Milwaukee.
It's actually funny because I just wrote an entire thing over at Yahoo where I was making 29 trade suggestions for Giannis, and basically, I said none for the Cavaliers just because they are so deep over the second apron that it's just ridiculously difficult to find a trade that even makes sense in any capacity. And plus, like, they would have to shed 22 million on the second apron just to get below to that point where they could aggregate contracts. Like,
Right.
I
forgot about that. You're right. Yeah,
right. And the Bucks are 17 million from the first apron, which means if they take on
you need
that
the
money,
Nets.
yeah, you need the Nets. Right.
You need the Nets.
And this article was only like a team for team trade. Like, because I wasn't looping in for her teams when I was doing 29 trades. But no, if you're asking me straight up, like Evan Mobley and stuff for Giannis in a vacuum, and we're just ignoring like the aprons and whatnot, I'm going Giannis, sir. I absolutely am.
I mean, he's the better player, but just the time horizon, I just wonder, would you, if it's straight up, okay, but if you're talking about, so Cleveland can trade their 2030 and 2032 first round picks, you would be giving those to Evan and saying, we're on Donovan Mitchell's timeline and like, we're going.
Yeah. Donovan Mitchell and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the same team going into the playoffs? Yes, please. Both of those guys have proven time and time again that they raise their level of play in the postseason. Why wouldn't I be all over that?
Man, I don't know if I could do it. But
that's also why, like, you know, I always pick up certain players, like, and I find myself annoyed with them. Like, guys who don't step up in the playoffs, that is just like one of my main issues. Like, and I'm not saying Evan Mobley doesn't, but I think there's certain players who we just have to look at and go, if we know historically they raise their level of play when it matters most, I feel as though they should be prioritized to a bigger sense. Like, that's why I'm so low, for example, on a Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, someone who just, again, yeah, I know I'm playing all the hits today, but still, that's what I'm getting back to. Like, you need to have guys who become ceiling racers or who enter the playoffs with this mindset of, oh yeah, I'm better than you thought I was.
All this is to say, although we do have this question from M. Tavares 15, do you think the Cavs have to trade Garland because of how he and Mitchell overlap on the floor? No. I think Donovan Mitchell's been fantastic, but I also kind of think like Darius Garland does more at his peak to tie everyone else together on the offensive end.
Yeah.
I do think this isn't spicy. We're kind of in the final year of we're not, unless they win it all, like the two bigs and two small guards, that will be busted up this summer if they fall short again. And
that's fair.
My final stance to them is I'm not concerned. If they were going to make a move, I might just be looking to get someone who can play the 4 during those Mobley minutes when he is at the 5. And they might look, they have those guys, but if they were looking for an upgrade, Herb Jones would be the dream, but Justin Champagnie could work. They could fit Najee Marshall into their salary structure. We're just playing the hits again. Our next team, Mort, in the standings is your Atlanta Hawks. What is your question for them?
I have been thinking so hard because I was kind of counting it out that I would have to, get a question out of that. I'm struggling finding one, but I think maybe there is something, and I'm not sure it's trade-oriented in that regard, but it's worth keeping your eye on. So Zachary Richichet is having a, what's the kind word? A so-so season? A meh season? He's not hitting from the outside. From someone who's 6'9", 6'10", he's barely rebounding. Everything seems like it's just a sophomore slump. Is it? Like, are we looking at someone who we have these inflated expectations for because he was the first pick of a draft, fully ignoring that specific draft was all types of horseshit? So that's my question. Like
you want to ask if we need to
Richichet?
I guess it's tough for me to say that we need to recalibrate when I don't think anyone pegged him as a star coming out.
Right, but this, I mean, he's starting, but I don't even want to call him, having starting player influence at this point.
Right. But what is the question here? Is just, do you want them to sell high on him, or is it
selling high? Basically, what's it do? that's my question just with him, because I'm actually I'm impressed that he hasn't played a lot, but when KP has been there, he's been putting up almost 20 a game. Oh, by the way, hello, Nickeil Alexander-Walker averaging almost 21 per game. That's wonderful.
Right.
Like, there are a lot of great stuff happening. Like, Jalen Johnson, clearly cut all-star, probably an all-NBA guy if he finishes the year out this way. There's just so much to like elsewhere on the roster. Trae Young has only played 5 games. It's going to be interesting to see if he can, like, buy into the same ankle as everyone else when he comes back. I kind of low-key like this team because I don't think we associate them with, finals expectations or anything. We're just kind of intrigued to see, can they move forward? Can they find a way to, like, make all the pieces fit? And Ricochet was one of those pieces, or presumed pieces. And what I'm really asking is, should we still consider him one of those? Should we just, because I'm open to the idea, Dan, that this is just a sophomore slump, that this could just mean nothing. And I hope that's the case. But the little voice in the back of my head is kind of saying, oh, no, I'm not sure about that.
Man, if they coming to that verdict when Trae Young has played so little, because I think specifically when you look at what Ricochet can give you inside the arc with his type of games, I think that he might be more dependent on what Trae Young does as a playmaker than what Jalen Johnson might be doing as a playmaker. But to your point, if Jalen Johnson is gonna, be like leading this crazy transition attack, like Ricochet is supposed to thrive there. I've given a lot of thought to, like, does the spacing get wonky in Ricochet's minutes because of Dyson Daniels being on the floor and even a Jalen Johnson? So I think Trae is all sorts of important. But I think it's probably fair to be concerned. I just don't. It'd be different if we viewed him in, like, even if we viewed him, just to go back to the Cavs, because we were just talking about them, we thought that he was at Darius Garland's level, an all-star, all-NBA type player. I don't think anyone had him billed as that, even when the Hawks took him. He was the consummate, feels like the plug-and-play fit type of guy. And Atlanta, to me, I think needs to address more wholesale questions before they get into their concern for Ricochet. Now, is it easier to move him if you were going in on Giannis, to where maybe over the summer you might have said, we're not including Ricochet if we go in for Giannis? Now, because you probably don't want to give up Jalen Johnson either, even though those two would be a weird fit. I don't know. This is tough. It's year 2, so I would throw it out the window, and the Hawks, just with not having Trae Young. Now, if you think the Hawks' ultimate vision does not include Trae Young, now we're having another type of discussion. I just don't. Ricochet is so low on my list of priorities for this team because I feel like they have more of a wholesale question standing them in the face, which is, do you think that they're actually better off? And by better off, I mean not hitting restart, but do you think that they're just a better team without Trae Young?
Well, I mean, I don't feel I have enough data for that. Like, because how would all right, so Nickeil Alexander-Walker, just to use an example, he's blown up, right? Is that because Trae hasn't been there, or would he actually just have been able to do the same thing alongside Trae? For me, it's always been like the collective buy-in for everyone, and also like the finding the right fit. Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels seem to me to be more appropriate fits alongside Trae than, for example, Dejounte Murray when they tried that. So I would like to see him Trae, that is, being given the chance of playing with this particular, ensemble cast before I'm ready to once and for all say, oh, this team is better without him. I think the only conclusion I'm ready to make is that Jalen Johnson is better than Trae Young. That is the only conclusion that I'm fully committed to at this point.
I still have a tough time getting there, but I'm just running out of reasons to it's Jalen Johnson's been spectacular. I still think the Hawks are, whether he's the number one or Trae's the number one, they've kind of proven that they will be decidedly mid. What is this? Let's say this is what I find more fascinating. In all likelihood, they're not going to move Trae Young. They're not going to trade for Giannis. They're not going to move. What is this team's biggest need to you as currently constructed? That was my question for them.
Their biggest need, well, I'm at point guard, because again, everything was tailored around Trae, right? Like someone who can come in and just make the passes. We can talk about Trae being a bad defender and taking really weird shots until we're blue in the face, but we can't ignore the fact that his playmaking is elite. someone who can just come in and make the right passes, who can get the transition going, who can get everyone involved. That is still a need. That is something that I still miss. And I realize I'm saying that as Jalen Johnson is doing a perfectly fine job handling that responsibility. But when push comes to shove, you're going to need more guys to be able to do that, especially in a potential playoff context. So point guard playmaking.
What about like a Trey Jones for them?
Yeah, that'd be fun. Like I wouldn't hate someone who's like at a lower, what's the word, quality of point guard, who comes in, who doesn't really cost you that much, who is underrated a little bit, but who will just like find his way through the DNA of the team. Yeah, that's a good shout.
Do you think we have this from Hind_90 Trey for AD? What does that solve for Atlanta? I don't love the AD Jalen Johnson from. I mean, yeah.
No. Yeah. I have nothing to say other than I agree. That would be a weird fit. Yes.
Do you think that there's any way, and I think this will be blamed on Trey, but I think it's also a matter of Jalen Johnson too. Is there any way for those two to operate at their peaks together? Because we've seen other co-stars who are great on the ball work off each other, but I think what we've seen from Trey just thus far, the shortcomings, or at least looking at the time he spent away from the ball, the sample size isn't there. Is it a willingness thing? Can he just not be used that way? I don't know. And then with Jalen Johnson, I just think you have too many. There's a lot of the play finishing stuff and quick decisions he can make when he's away from the ball, but I don't know if he's even a good enough shooter to say, well, if you take the ball out of his hands for X amount of possessions, X percentage of possessions per game that he's on the floor. I say all this. He's shooting, 40+% from three on four attempts per game. Under 5 per 36 minutes is nothing for someone who is going to play at his position. And so is it similar to the concerns I have, I guess, are less about Trey Young singularly. Although if you believe Jalen Johnson's just better and he's better defensively, so that's the easier the positional size, sure. It's similar to Paolo and Franz, to where you have to ask yourself, can they bring out the best in one another? And what's interesting is that I think because Paolo and Franz can be interchangeable at both ends in a lot of respects, you feel more confident about those two. I just want to see more of it. Like, it's even Jalen Johnson. I think I caught shit from a few people. I might have said he was injury prone. If I said that, I apologize with misuse of phrasing. We just haven't seen Jalen Johnson do this for an entire season of where he was in a big role, because you look at like how little he was playing to open up his time in the NBA. And then the past 2 seasons, we've just seen like his availability cut short for whatever reason. So I'm not saying
so you hate Jalen Johnson is what we
Correct.
can conclude.
I'm just saying we've yet to see all-star Jalen Johnson play in more than 55, 56 games for an entire season.
Fair.
That's all.
I get it. I think that's perfectly reasonable skepticism. I get that. I disagree with it, but that's also because I'm leaning into the optimism of it all with him. But that doesn't mean that what you lay out here is not something that the Hawks and the front office shouldn't have in the back of their minds as well. Because you're right. If you can't find someone to probably build around him as well, in terms of like, you have to consider like, where does he come short in terms of his skill set, and what type of point guards can't he be paired with? Yeah, that's going to be a difficult process. I agree that Trey and Jalen are not necessarily, the most obvious compatible pairing. So then it becomes a question of finding out who is.
It's also just this version of Jalen Johnson you look at and say, well, can he be compatible? Because you want to have the ball in his hand. So would you say that this is a good problem that they have, though? I know a lot of people are painting it negative, and I'm kind of looking at it as, I have some concerns, but this is like a really good problem to have.
I agree.
Our next team, Mort, is the Milwaukee Bucks. I've tried to stay, we'll dig into maybe some less cliche stuff, but I think the question is, what is going on with Giannis? Like, how does this end? And if you're not going to move him, are you selling him now, especially that he's dealing with the calf strain? Is this a gap year situation? Or if you're actively trying to get better, what is it this team needs around him to be a viable threat? And look, to Giannis's credit, they're a plus 8.5 per 100 possessions when he's on the court. The offense it's actually been okay when Kevin Porter Jr. has played without him, but that sample is so small. KPJ looks good since coming back. I think I lean more towards they need to get someone else who can generate shots if you want to continue building this thing with Giannis. I just don't know, given not the state of the rumor mill right now, but how it's been since this past offseason. If you're the Bucks, I don't know how you talk yourself into anything other than we need to, if you want to keep Giannis, it's can we sell you on a gap year? We'll get a high pick. It'll either be our own or the Pelicans, and then we can revisit trade scenarios over the offseason or just recalibrate our direction over the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have any more bullets left in the chamber other than that, than just waiting. That is what they've done. They've exhausted everything in order
Well,
to
no,
just retain him.
they have a first. They could trade first round equity. I don't think they should.
Right.
Go ahead.
That was something that opened up, right? I mean, that wasn't something that was available.
No, they couldn't trade 2032 last year.
Right.
They could trade it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, yes, new pick will be opened up for. It's look at that roster. Look at that. It's a direct result of them making these short-term decisions over and over and over again after winning the championship. Like, I know Bucks fans are going to come in and say, well, context matters. And like this scenario. Look, at the end of the day, this franchise made a bunch of bad decisions. It happens. Wait.
What are you faulting the Bucks for doing exactly then?
Well, so for first and foremost, I don't think, even if he was somewhat limited, I don't think trading Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma, generally speaking, was a pretty good idea.
Totally fair.
Good. I also don't think it's a smart idea, if you do have Giannis in your possession, to say, hey, let's create 5 years of having dead cap space because of waiving and stretching Damian Lillard, because, I understood the predicament, though. I'm not saying I don't understand the predicament because, he was injured. That leaves you in a really tough spot. But instead of paying for that for 1 year where you were going to be without him, you're now going to pay having 5 years where, what is it, $23 million every single year? It's just, overall, to me, this hasn't been a roster that was fitting of someone of Giannis' stature. Like, there's him, and we're not even sure who's the second best. Well, this year we've seen Ryan Rollins, evolve to the point where I consider him the second best player. Which also, by the way, when you're then going out and spending $100+ million on Miles Turner and he's not immediately the next best player, issues. I never liked the roster construction post-championship whatsoever. I felt they came and they hired Doc, they hired Darvin Ham. I consider this team an absolute shit show. I don't trust them. I don't trust their capability of making trades that makes them better for the long term, that makes them also, by default, more attractive for Giannis to stay put. You
were against the initial Damian Lillard trade then?
No, so I know that was exhausting a lot of that. And that's why I mentioned afterwards the predicament they found themselves in after that injury. I fully understand that. The Dame thing was different to me because they found someone who was at least approaching Giannis's level at that point in time.
Right. So then I'm just curious as to why. I don't know. I think the criticism for this team is then being overstated. The Doc hire is, I don't want to, they clearly, honestly, the biggest criticism could be, have they kowtowed too much to Giannis's whims? If it's not just even Giannis's allegiance, but the whims of,
that's fair.
Oh, he's reevaluating his future every 5 seconds, it feels like. My counter would just be, it's Giannis. How long is it? They had Kareem, and then 50, 60 years later, whatever it was, they get Giannis. That's probably what's going to happen again this year. I actually think I give them credit. The one move that I looked at and I just thought it was awful in real time, I believe, was the Kyle Kuzma, the Chris Middleton stuff.
Oh, I hated it.
I totally get that. And the Dame thing, it's easy to look at now, the wave and stretch.
Right.
I guess there were some people that were on the fence about the initial arrival of Dame. I appreciated. We all thought that's what they needed when they made, that's what their offense could have needed. I think the only way that you could really fault this front office is, one, you could look at and say they haven't gotten enough traction maybe out of the draft picks they've been able to use.
That
would be, there's that, but it's also just, then they should have made the decision to move Giannis sooner or been more stubborn in some of their principles with team building.
They should have done that too. Yeah.
You could say they should have done that, but you are kind of discounting Giannis is a once-in-a-generation talent. And if these are the steps that, yeah, again, the front office is there because you don't want to make the excuse that, like, LeBron James and Anthony Davis had control of the Russell Westbrook trade in LA way back when. The front office is there because they need to run interference. They need to keep expectations in check. But I also, when it comes to someone who's actively looking to leave, if they did what they could to keep Giannis,
who I have under contract. I am not obligated as an NBA franchise to trade my star player if I have him on under contract for a couple of years at least. I understand if he is like, I want to get out of here, I'm going to make it a mess for you. But if you believe in your vision, if you believe you can go out there and actually make some prudent, smart moves just by having a shred of patience in doing so, I will also have to believe that my own superstar, will realize eventually, oh, shit, they actually brought in guys who I can play with. Perhaps I was just a little too impatient. Now I'm happy again because we're winning. Thank you, Bucks, for doing the right thing. It's just, you said it, just reacting on a whim. That's an issue for me. I would okay, maybe that's why I would also get fired. I would never run an organization that way. If my star player was, and I had him under contract for at least 2 or 3 years, and he was like, well, I don't know if this is the direction I want to go in. I'm just like, tough shit. Let me prove to you that you're wrong.
And I guess that's where we differ is I would take that stance personally. At least I would like to think I would have the gall to take that stance. The reality is, especially with a Giannis, even him soft launching his trade demand over the past however many months, if you date back to the offseason, has been problematic enough. If you're going to turn him into I don't think he'd ever quit on the team, but just a malcontent, that's tough to do. And I think, I don't know. I just don't, they've made missteps. I'm not trying to say they were perfect and they handled all of this ideally. I just feel like they've acted, I think the way that you would want a team with Giannis to act is that they've never held back. Look at Dame in Portland. We criticize the Blazers a lot for half measure after half measure after half measure. The Bucks, for the most part, seem like they've sometimes been the wrong measures, but they've tried to make the full tilt measures. And I guess I give them more credit for that. To end on it all starts and ends with Giannis. I don't think now it would be irresponsible of them to make a move to try and upgrade the roster while giving up first round equity, a Ryan Rollins if they wanted to move him when he's trade eligible. I think at this point it has to be one of two things. Is they sit there and say, hey, Giannis, this is going to be a gap year. We'll get a high draft pick, and then we will reevaluate over the summer. Our trade options with that draft pick plus 2 more opening up, we'd be able to trade up to 3 first-round picks, or maybe it's 2 first-round picks and we're developing this player we draft, or they just need to look at moving him. There's no, and we all know how to, with all the pushback I've provided to you, Mort, we all know how this ends. Giannis is getting traded. It's just,
he's gone.
Are they going to be able to prolong it a little bit longer? Is it going to happen by the deadline, or is it going to happen over the offseason, or does it happen in the middle of next season? I honestly don't know because of the way this saga has played out. Right. I do think there is value at this point as the Bucks to where you could say, we are ripping off the Band-Aid. Is that it feels like Giannis has been pushing them to make the decision anyway. This is the classic case of neither side wants to break up with the other. Right. You've probably reached the point as the Bucks, but I would understand it if you said they wouldn't, just because of how anomalous Giannis is as a player and an icon to the franchise.
And they won a championship. At the end of the day, they won a title. I mean, we can't sit here and say that in any way this was a failed experiment or whatever.
No.
They won a freaking championship.
This is poetic that you get this team because it's your Chicago Bulls.
F you. Jesus.
Poetic is the word, Mort. Your Chicago Bulls.
Right. Thank you. What to do with all the expiring contracts is going to be my question here because they have a ton of them. Vooch, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, and so Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, and Javon Carter. This is not really Chicago oriented. I want to bitch about this again because it annoys me. The 140% extension limit rule, it hits my ass in all the wrong places because you do something good. You get a guy back, 2 guys here in Dosunmu and Kobe White, by negotiating, and you're getting guys back at a price point that, yes, is team friendly. That is what a team is supposed to do when you're negotiating with free agents. And then you're penalized for not even being able to extend them because of that extension limit when they're your guys. You drafted them even. To me, that is just such a ridiculous rule where the Bulls here in this particular instance, they are getting screwed over by doing what they're supposed to be doing, getting a good deal for themselves. I don't think this benefits Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu either. I don't think it benefits the team because obviously Kobe and Ayo, they would love to be on, longer term deals so they don't have to, risk injuries and whatnot. So it's just
Hind _90 in the chat. Patrick Williams should stay. I think this is kind of like safe. Giannis inquired about the Bulls and they weren't interested type rumors. Like if Patrick Williams is going to stay because Patrick Williams can't be moved.
Right. So yeah, that was just my aside. But honestly, if they had competent leadership, Dan, they'd be interested because they have so many expiring contracts. They have their own draft picks. Like if you had a really good managerial team and an ownership who actually understood the concept of a CBA, this would be intriguing. The amount of possibilities that are open for the Bulls could be quite intoxicating to me if I was, an adequate general manager.
Yeah, they're probably more likely to extend all of these expiring contracts than they are to trade any of them. And by that, obviously, I know Ayo and Kobe White won't sign anything. They'll probably extend Vooch. They'll extend Kevin Huerter and Zach Collins. Why not? We know what they should do. Because since starting 6-1, they're 29th on offense, 24th on defense, a whopping 3-13. Vooch, even Trey Jones, Modest Buzelis, of course, they've all cooled off in a big way. They should be trading these guys for what value they can get back. And if long-term money is accompanied with that, hopefully you've gotten draft compensation for it. And this applies to the Bulls might be getting screwed in these things, but in some ways, because they're not good enough, it's almost better for them that they can't pay Kobe White the max right now because they probably would, and that's not going to set them up to be in a good situation.
Correct.
Moving forward.
Also correct, yes.
They should be looking to move. There's nobody on this roster I'm not looking to move. You could say Modest Buzelis deserves to be untouchable, but we might have gotten ahead of our skis with him last year and at the start of this year. We need to see. I'm not looking to actively trade him, but he's the closest you have. Him or Josh Giddey, I'm sure they view him as and he's been one of their more consistent players this year on the offensive end. So you have to say that for him. They should be looking to trade everybody, though, basically. And they won't do that. And I find them, you're right, they could be interesting. I find them wholly unstimulating to talk about because we know that they're going to do nothing and just descend deeper into the 11th circle of hell or whatever they're in right now.
I agree. Should we move on?
Which would mean that our next team, a little spicier team here. This team is interesting. The Charlotte Hornets, Mort. The question is, I kind of want to know how they're going to operate at the deadline because historically under Jeff Peters, I say historically, it's only been a few seasons. They've just taken on salaries, they've traded guys, gotten picks, and I think they'll operate in the same vein again, except you don't necessarily have, aside from Colin Sexton, just because I don't think Miles Bridges really has any trade value whatsoever. I don't think that they have the pieces to do that. And so I find myself kind of wondering, are we ever, he's injured again, going to get to see what a LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple core could look like over an extended period of time? Is there something to the reports that LaMelo was unhappy? Was that more about the Hornets trying to soft launch their own sort of trade gauge for LaMelo himself? Because I would argue if any party in this is going to be more frustrated than the other with the situation, it should be Charlotte more so than LaMelo. I still believe in LaMelo, but we're just getting to a point when you look at the sample of just him and Brandon Miller, very low over the past 2+ seasons. And now you're throwing Con Knipple in there. I don't know what to make of this team. And so my question about their trade deadline direction is, do you think it's going to mirror more of the level-headed, conservative approach, smart, to be sure, savvy, that they've taken under Jeff Peterson? Or do you see the potential, and I know we're talking about just one player here, for them to do something more seismic, spicier this season?
They should. So I hope so, because...
Well, I'm sorry. what are you getting for LaMelo Ball that you're saying you should? Or are you at the point where it's Zion level, just trade him for expiring contracts?
Well, I mean, that is not something I'm privy to at this point because that depends on, like, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder at the end of the day, right? So,
like if I was running an NBA team, they would get.
You would probably give up something a lot. You give up
Cooper Flag, more picks from
for
Dallas.
LaMelo.
Yeah.
You would have a team of Reed Shepherd and LaMelo Ball, no one else, and you'd just say go 2-on-5 every single game.
Jabari Smith Jr. too, just to prove a point as well.
All right, thank you. Yeah. No, look, I honestly, I don't care whether they get, not care, that's the wrong phrasing. I don't know whether they can get something more than expiring contracts out of LaMelo, but at this point, I'm not closing the door. That's how I'll phrase it. I'm not closing the door on any offer. I'm taking everything under consideration. I'm bringing it back to the rest of my team. I'm having meetings upon meetings upon meetings, and I'm saying, what are we going to do here? Are we willing to just cut bait on this guy who's like the former Rookie of the Year, who's a former All-Star, this, and that? Are we just fed up at this point? And if the room is like, yeah, we are, then go ahead and do it. I won't blame you. Certainly.
I think they get more than expiring contracts for him, but I'm just not trading him right now. I'm holding out, remaining patient. And if I'm them, it's just they have a lot of, I mean, even Tijon Salon starting to play a little better. You have Brandon Miller. You have Con Knipple. I still really like Liam McNeely. You've gotten a lot more out of Ryan Kalkbrenner than I would have predicted. Same with Sion James, like Musa Diabate. I think for them, it just needs to be, and they've done a good job of this by and large. I'm looking at repeating my past 2 or 3 trade deadlines or whatever it's been. What is the money we could send out? Maybe we're taking back a less desirable contract and it's attached to draft compensation. To revisit Boston, it's if we sent them Colin Sexton, would they attach anything to Anthony Simons?
Yeah, they were smart. The draft too. They drafted well. I look, if they get any sort of draft equity for LaMelo and they keep their current trend going, I think they were 3 out of 4 in the draft.
Are you completely out on the idea? I know this takes a level of patience that seems obscene at this point, but like they're headed for top lottery odds again. And so it's just, okay, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple, another high pick, LaMelo, or at that point are you getting to this is just too many cooks in the kitchen of which we're being pulled in too many different directions?
Well, that's
I make
one.
a circle jerk motion over here.
Yeah, you were, and you enjoyed it too. Look, it's the injury thing as well. Like even if I was willing to give this a go, I can't go into a season and trust LaMelo will play more than 25 for 40 games. I can't trust that. Let me just look at it. So 36 games, 22 games, 47 games, and then okay, that's just obscene. I can't trust that. I can and if I go into a season, I have to plan for 82. I can't plan for 41. I can't plan for 35. I have to plan for 82. I can't do that with him, and he's taking up a pretty substantial amount of, my cap space if I'm the Hornets. Like, what is that? 24.5%, 24 to 25? Yeah.
He's on the fun, unless you think that he needs to be waived and stretched. That's the contract.
He's not playing.
No, it's not. And also it's just, how do you plan around, let's use Con Knipple as the example. Right. I think that's not malpractice, but like run more pick and rolls with Con Knipple trying to run the entire offense at this point. He's at like 2 per game, and you have Sexton, you have Trey Mann, you have LaMelo. You need to dilute that somehow. Now, I would gravitate towards LaMelo might take care of it himself by missing time, and you could look at moving Sexton. I do think there's something to it. Gets complicated to start developing all these higher-end youngsters if the guy around which you've so far structured your franchise can't be relied upon to play in games. And I don't think this is a LaMelo doesn't want to play or isn't taking care. I think Charlotte and LaMelo seem like they have actually tried everything, and it's just not working out. I don't know what the answer is here, though. That's why it's a question. I think the one definitive thing I would say is, to me, from a franchise value perspective, I don't think it makes sense to move him now. The offers you're getting at this moment, even if he doesn't play another game for the season or if he doesn't play well, I don't think those are just going to dissipate or get materially worse over the summer. and I would like to see the rest of this season, or at least post-trade deadline. Even if he runs into the rookie wall or he's not as efficient, like Con Knipple, let's really see what he can do. Is the stuff they basically run the offense through him, it feels like, without him actually being on the ball as much as he could be. And so I'd like to just see more of that as we move forward. Our next team up, Mort, are your Brooklyn Nets. What's your question for them?
So how do you survive going into a first round where you have 5 draft picks, 5 first-round picks, and not getting more out of it than what we're seeing right now? Basically, can they survive whiffing on an entire draft where they had 5 picks? I know you're going to push back. You're going to say, Drake Powell is going to join my team alongside Reed Shepard and LaMelo Ball and Jabari Smith. That's cool, Dan. I like Drake Powell too. I see it. But like to the point where it was so many picks. And
who have they whiffed on? Who have they? I just
okay. I hear you. Like whiffed is a big word, but like out of that grouping, does anyone stand out to you as a future star? Which, after all, is the point of going into a draft and going young guy. Or are you thinking process?
It's I think Danny Wolf is starting to show signs. This is coming as someone I was not a Danny Wolf guy. Between him, Drake Powell, and Yegor Jomin, I think you've gotten 3 guys who are intriguing, and certainly 2. Where were they supposed to get a star with where they drafted?
Oh, I would have traded up. I would have tried to trade up.
I'm sure they did. You think they sat there and did absolutely nothing on draft night?
So I might be misremembering, but I do think we heard something or read something about them preferring to optimize the amount of first-round draft picks.
Maybe, like you're talking about
trades, because they wanted to have more guys on that salary structure. I do believe I read something along those lines during the draft.
But I would need to know the trade opportunity they passed on.
Right.
To say that they missed.
And that's fair. That is fair. Overall, I'm just underwhelmed. Maybe I'm just whelmed if I'm being in the positive light. I just wonder where they go from here. I wonder what's the jumping off point, or like what are they going into next season high off on? Are they looking at this group of rookies?
A top 4 pick this summer?
Yeah, which is fair. Look, this rebuilding process is going to take time, absolutely. I did think that there would be more pizzazz in this draft class for them, at least. So I'm just wondering overall, I don't even know how to phrase the question. It's just, are they still as optimistic about the future as they were before the draft is probably my question.
I mean, I don't know why they should be more pessimistic.
Okay.
Just because I think you look at it, like Danny Wolf is an example, just someone that I wasn't high on coming in. He's the 3-point shot falling at the moment, over 44% through his last 10 games.
He's rebounding.
Yep. Even seemed like some kind of hook shot from him. Maybe you wish he finishes at the basket a little bit better. Sure. Yegor Jomin, he has more functional flexibility than I anticipated. You know how I feel about Drake Powell. I think that that dude is going to be a good 3-and-D plus guy. What more did you, in a draft class that many agree, like
was good,
but you're mad that they took Saraf or Nolan Trey? I just can't.
Yeah, so no, I can't list every single name. But again, like I thought at every single turn that they had a pick, I would have gone in like a plethora of different directions at every single turn. And I was like, okay, I'm keeping an open mind. Like there could be something really good here. Like I will say, Drake Powell, given that how he's looked right now, I'm open to the idea that is a very good like draft slot. I don't know, Dan. I just overall, when I watch this team play, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling to see like the upside. You're way bigger of an optimist on this team than I am, and I appreciate that. Because it's looking like it's such a long process.
Which is, I mean, yeah. My response to that would just kind of be like, no shit, it's a long process. Look at the starting point they were coming from.
Right.
I find this more of an interesting question for them. How are they going to use their cap space? They've got $15.3 million leading into the trade deadline. I'm assuming they're going to facilitate a few moves. I do you think it's going to end up being something that's bigger or going to be broken up into multiple legs? And I guess they could do it. They could do
Right.
both because they have salaries to move.
Yeah.
This is what's interesting. Who's the most likely player to be traded on this team?
I think they're like if there's interest for it, I wouldn't be surprised if they're very keen on double dipping with Michael Porter Jr. By getting a draft pick for taking him on, and then now because he's playing the way that he is, getting a draft pick for him specifically in a trade. Now, given his salary structure, that's probably not the cleanest trade to make because he's earning that much. So I find that more likely to be an off-season thing, if anything. So, yeah, to answer your specific question of how they're going to split it up, I would imagine that they would be willing to go in a multitude of different directions. Like if they can get assets in some capacity of spreading up spreading up the cap space into 2 bits and absorb something from there, cool.
I think that might be. I feel like that's what they'll do, just because I don't know what's the team that's coming in with like the one like we need to dump maybe Boston and like we're going to compensate you to soak up $12+ million in salary. And I also don't know what's the bad contract out there that a team, because you could point to Paul George or Joel Embiid. Can they work out something there? Like would the Sixers do something? Paul George for Michael Porter Jr. What are they attaching to that? You're only really saving a year, right? Because Porter has 1 more and Paul George has 2 after this one.
Yep.
So I don't know what the level of compensation would be there, but I agree with you that it'll probably end up being something on the smaller end.
Yeah.
The Indiana Pacers are my team, and I have 2 full questions for them. Let's start with the cliche one. Do they have to render a verdict on Benedict Mathurin before this trade deadline, knowing that he's headed into restricted free agency, or do you think because of how the RFA market is, they don't have to worry about him standing out this year when it comes to grappling with his next price point?
Again, we're coming back to this thing we talked about in regards to Jason Tatum earlier. We don't know how anyone is going to look post, Achilles tear in terms of Tyrese Halliburton. Here's a guy in Benedict Mathurin. He's not a playmaker, but we damn well know that he can score. We know this. We know he can get to the free throw line. We know he can rebound. We know that there's a certain baseline you can expect out of him every single night. Do I lean into that and go, at least we have some sort of knowledge about this player, and that makes it worth it for us to go into restricted free agency and try to get him back? Or do I go, because he's a bit of a known commodity, let me go out to the trade market and see whatever I can squeeze out? But I would also be fearful that if I do move him and Hallie is coming back next year, I'm looking at a situation where I'm putting him in such a rough spot because he's coming off an Achilles tear, and I'm probably going to ask him, hey, we don't have Benedict Mathurin anymore. Can you come in immediately and average 30, please? Thank you. I would like that buffer of having a guy who can just go in and get you a bucket as Hallie slowly gets back into form.
Which I think I'd probably agree with you, because I don't know what's the team that's coming in and bowling you over with a Benedict Mathurin offer. I would probably just wait it out until RFA. My more intriguing question for them would be, should they be in the market to get a center or a big that they think can be on the roster this past season, or are you not doing anything to plan around the future until, 1, you know where your draft pick is, and 2, what Halliburton is? Because if you're waiting to see what Halliburton's going to look like, you're not making any big-time decisions until the middle of next year.
Yeah, right. I mean, if I win the lottery and I'm looking at a Darren Peterson, for example, then that's my primary focus. Then Hallie even becomes my secondary focus, honestly. So no, I wouldn't go out and do anything quite yet. Also,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hallie becomes your secondary focus if you win the lottery?
Again, we don't know how it's an Achilles tear.
That would still make him your primary focus until... Right, but so you've now, if you're doing that, you've written him off. That doesn't mean I'm writing
him off. No.
It does. If you're saying that he's your secondary focus, if you win the lottery.
That's a big thing. Hey, you're my secondary focus on an NBA team. That means that I'm still considering you. I'm still having you in my plans. I'm still there. I'm not saying, oh, you're no longer the team leader. I'm saying that we have to know for certain, like, what is going on. So that means I'm going to make my initial move, if I win the lottery, that is, drafting Darren Peterson, for example, and saying, okay, this right now, as of right now, we know there's a known commodity here, again, depending on if he delivers to the point of expectation. And that's when I basically say, that's going to be my primary. If Hallie then comes back, plays well, okay, we can shift our focus back to Hallie, but we don't know yet. It's probably going to be a year and a half total. That's what we always hear, that there's the full year of coming back, and then it takes about half a season, if not more, to really get into the hang of things again. So it's just such a devastating injury that I can't sit here and say I'm going to put my eggs in the Tyrese Halliburton basket.
I think that is a wild take to have, that you say you would shift your focus, because that entails you would then be trading Pascal Siakam if this number 1 overall pick is becoming your primary focus. And to say that without knowing what Halliburton looks like, if you want to go into it with an open mind, and now it's, we have this potential out or this reorientation point.
You don't have to trade Pascal immediately, though.
I think what you're saying is at war with itself. Because you can't say the number 1 overall pick is the primary focus of the franchise, and then say we're gonna have Pascal Siakam and Halliburton, like we're gonna, like, they're the complement.
Did the Dallas Mavericks trade Anthony Davis after they got Cooper Flag?
Is your idea of a well-run franchise the Dallas Mavericks?
All right. See, now that's fair. But you know what I mean, though, in terms of, we've seen so many times it seemed getting the number 1 pick, and they've still had veterans at their disposal. They figure out something over the course of like a 2-year period, right? Then they figure out, okay, what timeline are we on? I am just saying it would be, in my opinion, irresponsible to go into this thing and say, oh, yeah, we expect Tyrese Halliburton to come back and be, his lovely self. We all hope so. Obviously, we hope so. But to me, I would feel that is just putting all of my eggs in one basket that is extremely uncertain.
I think if you're going in it as a do or die perspective, that they're just counting on that and they were going to do something reckless like trade that draft pick, sure. But I don't think you can go into next season not viewing Halliburton as plan A and then looking to pivot away from that if he's not. This is all to say you're not. I'm in
a different spot there. Again, depending on it's Darren Peterson specifically, he's the guy for me.
Halliburton is a known quantity. Just led you to back-to-back conference finals, and I actually subscribe to the idea that I don't know what he's going to look like, especially with the way that the Pacers want to play. But to say you're going to pivot away from him before seeing him play is insane.
I guess that's a pivot, but I'm not saying that I'm excluding him. There's a difference. I'm saying that I have to go into what is healthy, and if I have the number 1 pick and it's a guy who I consider a franchise-altering player, I would be absolutely foolish to say, "Oh, hey, Darren Peterson, we'll be back to you in about a year and a half." That's just, I can't go into a new situation like that.
So you're not touching this roster, and you don't think they need to look at a big of the future, or at least waiting until
they have Jay Huff, sir. How dare you? He's leading the league in blocks.
What if in
18 minutes?
The other question I have, I'm sure Pacers fans probably tuned out because they're like, "Oh, look, the 2 questions that all the national guys talk about." Is it time to especially if you're kind of in on the idea of Mathurin, where is Jarris Walker fit on this team? He's shot better from 3 of late. I don't like him defensive. All the things that I thought he was going to be bad at, he's good at. All the things I thought he was going to be good at, he's bad at. I don't know what his future is on this team. And now I'm kind of wondering, this is year 3. What if you could do something like Walker, Toppin, or Walker, Jackson, and a 2027 first-round pick for Ivica Zubac?
Okay, so you get an in-prime center right now. Yeah. I'm trying to look at the upside here, in terms of because I do see if Hallie does get back and he's himself.
Notably, Jay Huff is still on the roster, so you should be okay with it.
Exactly. That's not bad. That is not bad because I'm also beginning to be a little bit not out, but I am very worried about Jarris Walker at this point. I spoke with oh God, it's late. Why am I completely whiffing on the name here? I spoke with Rick Carlisle. There we go, head coach of.
That's a big name to whiff on, man.
Sir, it is 1 a.m. and I am tired. Carlisle, of course, and he was saying he was so impressed with. This was last season though, but in January, so almost a year ago. But he was saying he was so impressed with Jarris's transition to the 3 instead of the 4. And when he said that, it was like, I mean, obviously I'm not going to push back on an NBA coach because, he's forgotten more about basketball in the time I asked the question than I've ever known. But it's not a – he to me was always like, somewhat of a pure 4. I saw him as sort of like new era Paul Millsap. And him just running around on the perimeter is something that I've generally been opposed to. I thought you needed to have him closer to the basket in the initial years, and then he could sort of slowly, level up to the point where he could be more of a floor spacer. But no, as of right now, it's year 3. He's been given an opportunity. He's playing 26 minutes per game, and he's just not converting shots. It's been a mess. Let's just be real about it. It's been a freaking mess. So I am not out on that deal. That is one of the few ones where I could see the logic in it. Yes.
They're in a tricky spot. I expect them to do nothing, but that was who thought we were going to have a huge disagreement over them. We are on to wrap up with your Washington Wizards, but I already know what your question is going to be, Mort. So there it is. It's on screen if you would care to read it to the folks at home.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the last minute troll. I will read it because I will own it. I was wrong. The question is, will Cam Whitmore win Most Improved Player? And he will not. There's
a lot of season left to play more.
I'm going to double down. I'm going to double down and make myself even more of an ass. Tyus Jones also won't win Sixth Man of the Year.
Oh, you picked? I thought you picked. Oh no, that wasn't you. Someone else picked.
I picked Tyus Jones.
Yeah, that's rough stuff.
Yeah, that's the awards predictions they've been especially rough on me this year. Especially rough. No, sir. He will not win Most Improved Player. He will not even win Most Improved Player on his own team.
He will not even win Most Improved Practice Participant, apparently.
Right. Oh, boy. No, but so obviously the question is in regards to the vets, right? CJ, Chris, are they going to pivot off of them mid-season? Can they? Are they earning both of them are earning a lot of money. Are they earning too much to a point where other teams are interested? We'll see. But that's probably going to be my big questions. And also, Dan, I'm not even in a rush if I'm the Wizards. I'm not.
You just have all this cap space coming. You don't need to be in a rush, for sure.
Right. And frankly, I like the idea of having Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum there for an even longer stretch for the entirety of the season, rather, because these are quality locker room guys. Now, I know the record doesn't reflect anything, but I trust those two guys to at least bring out something in young players.
I don't disagree with you when it comes to CJ McCollum. And I'm probably inconsistent on this. It cuts one of two ways. How do you feel about what CJ McCollum's usage is going to be, knowing that, okay, yes, he's averaging 3.4 assists per game, but he's not necessarily known as someone who's going to elevate everyone around him. Right. So he serves as this. I'm looking more so at the second half of the year where it's, okay, he's this defensive magnet to when, if Trey Johnson's available and you want to see him generate more of the offense, CJ McCollum in theory could help because defenses gravitate towards him first. But one, how often do you want to play those two together? Is CJ also, can he uplift players around him by having the ball so much in his hands? So it's kind of a splitting hairs thing. I agree the high character is a big deal. Could the high character translate to a role in which he is scaled down on a team that is going nowhere? Because the fact that he has a prominent role on this team, I think probably plays into the way that he is approaching it. Again, high character guy, and I think having him, Middleton, in the locker room is good. I'm also thinking, at some point, maybe you want to plumb the depths of this a little bit more. Or some of the younger guys a little bit more, like the Keyshawn George, the Trey Johnson for the two, and then like even Bub Carrington, who I think, he's been asked to shapeshift a lot. Do you want to try different things with Alex Sarr? I do think one thing they could do to maybe get the best of both worlds, but I don't know how feasible it is what if they just traded for like an actual floor general? Just like someone who could organize the offense. They don't have that right now.
I would love that. I would love that because last year, and I actually don't want to loop in this year because he's only played 16 games, Alex Sarr. Last year, there was a major issue. Guards or just primary playmakers would just frequently ignore Sarr, when he had lob opportunities, when he was just close to the basket. It wasn't intentional. It was just, it was Bub Carrington for the most part, a rookie himself who just didn't really have his head up the floor and was able to spot that to the extent that he did. But it just became a bit weird that it was just this theme all the time. Like nothing was really corrected over the course of the year. I firmly believe that Alex Sarr, probably suffered a loss of like a 4-point scoring average per game last year because guys just did not fucking see him. Major issue. This year, 16 games in, for him at least, we're seeing more scoring. We're seeing him getting the ball a little bit more in those spots, but there's still that issue that he can be a lob threat and that ball is just not being passed over the top. So I think it would behoove them to bring in someone who's like a true point guard. You brought up Trey Jones a couple times for other teams. That's an interesting player who I wouldn't hate see there under that prism. I think that.
You know what I would love? I know he's injured, and you probably have to give up stuff to give him Scottie Pippen Jr.
Oh, that's good. Yes. Young enough to also join in on, them. Well, Trey Jones is as well, but yes, I agree with you. That's a good one.
I caught shit for this one. I was trying to name players where you don't have to give up much or anything, and they fit. Do you want a younger guy? Like I said, Tyler Kolek, who is the best passer on the Knicks, but he has all sorts of flaws.
Right.
And some Wizards fans were mad, and I was just like, we need to recognize where the Wizards are at. They're not going to go out there and trade for, give up first round picks to go get somebody. Is my point.
But what is the deal for Tyler Kolek though?
He has 2 years. It's basically nothing. It's under team control.
Sorry. I'm sorry. My mistake. What's the trade?
You take him because the Knicks want to cut money beneath this. He fits into an exception. It's just the Knicks might even give you a second round pick at this point to do it. He's been playing a little bit more, but they clearly don't. Or maybe it's you took on Pacome Dadier as well as Tyler Cole. That's just, I'm saying, because they're not going to do anything that's super like a consolidation trade. I'm just either take a flyer or, like I said, I would definitely go Trey Jones if you had to give up some seconds for him. Scottie Pippen Jr. if he's healthy, I'd probably give up some nasty stuff for Scottie Pippen Jr. I'm not going to lie there.
Am I wrong in also saying there is potentially solutions to the Alex Sarr not getting the ball problem and on the roster by saying, hey, just play Sharif Cooper more?
I don't know that I have given that enough thought.
I loved him in college. Let's just put that one of the best playmakers in college, put a lot of pressure on the rim as well. I know he's small, 6 foot nothing on a good day. I love the passing instincts though. But that's fair. That's fair. He's only played 10 minutes.
I would, if they give completely different positions, but if they play him and aren't giving a ton of minutes to Jameer Watkins, I will probably riot against that. So
that's fair. Yeah.
But that's what I would be. I think they can facilitate salary dumps because they're beneath the luxury tax, and I think they will. I do think maybe it ends up being a buyout or something, but I do think one of CJ McCollum or Chris Middleton is gonna end up being off, especially when you look at Middleton, it's Will Riley's showing some stuff. Do you look at just moving Cam Whitmore at this point? Are you ready to bail out on him, or as the Wizards, do you still appreciate that flyer? Fair. There's so many different things they could do, but I think the one thing we're really in lockstep with is that it feels like this team could benefit from more of a offensive organizer. It's just tough because of the spot they're in. Are you willing to give up stuff to get that type of a player? And what is the risk reward profile of, let's say they get that, whether it's Trey Jones, whether it's whoever, is there any downside to, well, now we have kind of diminished someone else's role who's more on our timeline than a Trey Jones or a whoever. So you could say, go out and get one of the younger guys. But unless you're taking, again, a bottom of the barrel flyer on a Tyler Kolek, you might be giving up something substantial to get a promise. Like, you're probably giving up something interesting to get a Scottie Pippen Jr. if he's healthy.
Yeah.
And he's not even super young. What is he, 27?
I think he's younger, right? 20, 25, 26.
Okay, that's certainly young enough. So
yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't go out and just sell the farm. Let's just he just turned 25. Yeah, super young.
Why did I think he was so old? I would trade everything. Give up Alex Sarr, then just go get Scottie Pippen.
It's because we've heard about him for so many years. We were waiting for his arrival as well, coming into the league.
Yeah, for sure. They are one of my favorite teams to watch near the trade deadline, though, because they, I think, are going to be important to making other deals work or other teams' visions actually actualizing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on this board?
I don't.
Why don't you tell our audience where they can find you and all the great work that you do 2.5 hours later?
Yeah, I appreciate that. You can find my work over at Yahoo Sports. You can listen to the NBA podcast. And if you speak Danish, you can listen to Buzzer Beater or catch me calling games on HBO Max.
Until next time, and as always, do all the things, rate, review, subscribe, hype points, comment. We went 2.5 hours on the Eastern Conference. The West will be up at some point, probably even live as well. Finally, shout out to the one, the only, the indelible. He also, unfortunately, will not be winning the NBA's Most Improved Player award, even though maybe he should, Mr. Frank Ntilikina.